Hello.
Welcome back. Welcome
Who's-
back to the Combo Couch, fam.
Okay.
Say, stop laughing at me.
How could I not laugh at you? You invite it ever so
You know,
like
there are
yeah.
people who are very upset and they're very pissed, fam, and they're throwing in protest because of pretty much the fact that you change your picture on Facebook, right? And you don't put up the one with Fidel Castro. And what I'm trying to talk about is,
you know what hurts the most is the lack of respect.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to talk about right now, fam. The lack of respect.
I'm sorry if you thought I cared about your feelings.
You guys see how awful that is, guys. By the way, there are 24 watching right now over on Rumble. Let's do us a favor, guys. Jilly Love, Lucky Burrito, whoever's out there, any mods, we love you all. Get the link, post it in the YouTube. We're only on Combo Couch Premium. We want to start doing this. Unfortunately, the platform is made more for premium watchage or viewage. Fam, what's the word? Come on, aren't
Viewage.
Viewage. Idges. There's no just idge, right? So what we need to do is we need to have premium watchers on our Rockfin. So the best way to help us out is, like it says right down below, is become a premium Rockfin viewer. Now, if Spotify, Jardula, watch it, AREM. Now, if you want to watch it for free, you don't have the $9.99 a month to help us out over there. Rumble, our Rumble link is right over there where you can catch all our shows now too as well. We'll always be on YouTube for the softball topics, but when we got to play hardball, the only place to watch it for free will be on the Rumble. So we're going to start promoting the Rumble channel where you can watch it, no paywall. But what you can do greatly, one of the best ways you can help out the Combo Couch, and big thanks to our Patreons. Big thanks to people who keep on putting in the Brazil fund. We haven't had anything going there in a little while. I'll put that address up if you want to throw that up there, because we're still talking about Brazil today. I'm going to have to go back. We're going to have to go back to Brazil, fam. We're going to have to, unfortunately, we're going to have to put up our meeting too as well inside the TSE. I mean, man, I've been on election calls this whole weekend, fam, talking about Arizona, talking about Nevada, talking about Brazil, talking a little bit about Pakistan. So we're going to talk about those today. So if anybody wants to show any love, we always have that over there. You can always go to that particular one. I'm going to put it up really quick. It's this one right here, guys. Wait, that's not that one. Stop.
That's not
This one is that, where you can always send donations there. But this is it.
Yeah. Don't send donations to the DNC, please.
No. How many letters have you been getting from fucking Raphael Warnock? Excuse my French, mom. Hey, can you help out? You know, Obama's going to go stomping for Raphael or whatever. Dr. Warnock. Is Warnock a warlock? I mean, he did go to
Warnock.
Ukraine. Yeah, he's a warlock, though, because he's an evil warlock. He went to freaking Ukraine. That's why I don't believe they'll ever let that seat get up for you. Like, come to us, come to Ukraine. We'll make sure you get elected. I just think he'll win in the runoff.
Perhaps.
They're going to let Herschel Walker get in?
It doesn't really matter, because it's just not enough to really offset the balance. So either way.
Yeah, but you got to assume that Herschel Walker is not even plugged in or weffed up. Like, he's definitely just a freaking civil servant. I mean, he might believe in different ideologies, but do you think he's bought and paid for?
It doesn't matter as far as what I'm saying, Congress, though, because he doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference.
It starts with independent voices. Not that I'm a Herschel Walker fan over here, but
you seem like one.
Well, listen, he didn't go to freaking Ukraine, and I mean, if he can be talked to, and listen, I liked Herschel Walker as a player. I liked him as a person, so I have a different bit of a connection to him, fam. Unfortunately, you're not as old as me, and you don't have the old school sports knowledge, and which we're going to talk about today. I'm going to tell you the story when it's appropriate, fam, about Willis Reed.
Okay.
Willis Reed. Let me put this new thing down here, guys. We put some fun stuff up. I put a fun banner up today. Hopefully you can see it. Says it right here. A great way to help out and support the show is the Rockfin Premium. I also talked about the way fam is in commie heaven while I'm in election hell. Yeah, my Pizza Pete fam, a guy who's over here is a America First guy, but he's even very suspicious of everything that's going on. This guy's great. He's rooting for Croatia during the World Cup. I think he's originally from Hungary. But he's even very suspicious about what's going on. He even makes the joke, "Hey, what's up, my commie friend?" Because he's peeked at the show a couple times, fam. So see, I have to carry your communist weight with me. Like, I mean, that's the thing, like if I make my opinions,
And I have to carry your capitalist weight. So
I'm not necessarily a capitalist. I'm a mixed economy
you,
guy. Oh, you
there's
got to
no
kick
such
in. You
thing.
got to carry my individual
There's
thinking
no
for
such
myself.
thing. There's no
Oh,
such. Oh yes, that's what we're calling it now. Individualist thinking.
it is.
Okay.
It is.
Okay. Sure. Sure.
By the way, it's been confirmed, fam. Next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow, we're gonna have it back. It's gonna be a Smith Door 24. Dave
Bunch
Smith,
of
Jimmy Door 24.
libertarians.
We're gonna
How
have to
dare
wait.
they?
Listen, we're gonna have a little talk. We're gonna put Dave Smith on his heels and make him answer questions about healthcare. We talked a
Yeah.
little bit of it, but we're gonna talk a little bit more about it. We're also gonna talk about
Jimmy will
Ukraine,
not.
Russia.
Jimmy will not support healthcare for all. He just won't,
That's
and that
it's
is what I love and respect about Jimmy. He won't go
exactly.
back on that. It's such an important issue for me as well. It's just one of those things. Like, we could talk ages about it, but yeah, I do think people need some sort of help. If everybody else can do it, in spite of being all of Europe being all bought out and part of the EU and NATO and WEF, they still have better options when they get sick and they're like having cancer or something compared to the people in the United States. So there's just no excuse for me on that one.
Yeah, but here's the thing. This is the opportunity, and this is what I want to know. Because here's the thing. I believe the issues with the libertarians, first of all, when it comes to their economics, I don't know how they're going to just try to implant Austrian economics and think that it's going to change things. We're way too far down the fucking capitalist rabbit hole for you to play compassionate capitalism when too much land, entity, and equity and everything is bought up by the ruling class. So that to me is you're going to have to explain that shit right off the jump. And I get it. There's a lot of good things, removing the negativities, hurting the Fed, removing that's all beautiful. But I want to know how we're going to move forward. Secondly, the ideological handcuffs of inaction. Oh, well, what are we going to do about healthcare? Well, we're going to take away the restrictions, the red tape. But what are you going to do proactively? If your ideological handcuffs as a libertarian is that the free market's going to work itself out, that we can't be business-like as a country and invest properly in proper healthcare and future healthcare and make sure those that fall in the cracks get help, then I don't want to hear it. I'm somewhere between Jimmy and Dave where I want some stuff done. I want subsidies and money kicked out to people who want to invent and promote gardens, local gardens, healthy gardens, invest in fast food restaurants that are healthy options, invest in a good in gut health. Like, I want to find money for these people and change the whole freaking system. So that's against the libertarian ways, because those are the libertarians let the free market work itself out. No. Why can't you? And this is going to say other decisions. Russia, Ukraine with Dave, right? Well, my Ron Paul libertarian side says any war I have to oppose to any war. And Scott Horton's there too as well, believes that Russia made a mistake. I believe Russia was left with no choice. So how is that going to lead to, I don't want, inaction. A lot is lost by inaction than wrong action. And I'm not saying I'm saying the same actions have to change. But the inaction of the libertarian handcuffs sometimes, fam, that scares me. So that's why the great compromise, my attention's there, not my vote yet.
Right. Okay. So Tuesday, right, fam?
A week from this Tuesday. I just spilled a little coffee, fam. I got to grab a napkin real quick. I'm sorry. You want to riff really quick and tell everybody what's in the show? And I'm just going to get a quick napkin. Sorry.
So 2 announcements before we start the show, before we get into our sections. One is the big thing that happened is that the United States government, and I wish Paz was here so he could put it up, but I'll just go ahead and start reading it because he's clumsy and he spilled coffee. Let me pull this up right here. Venezuela will now be allowed to have oil via Chevron, into the United States. Now, this helps the Venezuelan economy greatly. It's just something that's going to help Venezuela get out of some of the hole that it's been because of the US embargo. I believe that started in particular for that, where there was no gas, oil allowed. That was in 2019. So it's been at least 3 years since that. So then we have that. And a lot of people have been saying, well, what does Venezuela get out of it? And they literally just get a better financial situation. Nearly $3 billion will be returned. $3 billion in assets that were frozen are going to return to Venezuela. The Alex Saab situation was not discussed as far as we know. The all of what's going to happen with the gold that was at the Bank of England, that hasn't been fully unraveled. So a lot of people are wondering what's that about, and it's what it's about. It's that it hasn't been unraveled fully, and Venezuela, when they're making these decisions, is extremely tight-lipped about this stuff. They're still interacting. Even contacts that I have that I've asked don't want to say very much right now. So as far as what we know, that's what it is. As far as what I think this is just literally Venezuela trying to help its people out. They're trying to really better the economic situation. I don't know if you guys recall, but a few months ago, I said that even the Gusano friends that I are friends with some of my family members that are from Venezuela were saying that people are returning to Venezuela, that the opposition is not really opposing Maduro that much anymore. Well, the opposition came together with Maduro's government to basically talk about this. And it's important because it just shows you, in my opinion, the weakness of the United States, where the United States is up. If you want to put the Venezuela tweet, fam, that'd be great. The weakness where the United States
Where
is
did you put it?
it
In the doc?
really needing. It's yes, it's in the very beginning of the announcements. It
Got
says
it.
announcements. And it's not. This isn't Venezuela like coming in from a weak position. This is the United States coming from a weak position. And basically, after saying Maduro is an illegitimate dictator, Juan Guaido is the president, after, doing all the things they've done to Venezuela and saying, no, we're never going to allow Venezuela in again. Well, they're opening up this market with Venezuela. So that is a big win for Venezuela. And in lifting this embargo, it just means that they're breaking this whole situation that's been going on from 2019, and so it really is going to help Venezuela. So that's something I wanted to announce before we get started. And also, Terry, who streams here via What the F is Happening in Latin America every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, she is going to have several guests on Venezuela, Colombia in the next few weeks. So just look out for that, because she gets she's going to have some really good guests that are working in the government and know what they're doing. So that's just what I wanted to announce on that regard. And the other announcement, fam, if you can put that one up
I'm going to
as
put it
well.
up right now. Keep going.
Well, I'll wait till you put it up.
Okay.
I'll wait till you put it up. Yeah.
There you go.
So I wanted to talk about what Zelensky's wife said, right? Because she said this, and this was reported on multiple platforms, not just Russian media, but his wife Olena said that Ukrainians are ready to live without light and heat for 2 or 3 years. She's saying this because Ukraine's infrastructure, as far as energy and as far as what the power, which is energy, but also water, heating, all of that, it has been attacked by Russia. The energy infrastructures have been attacked, and a lot of the cities have been completely dark, completely just Kiev. They have to go to train stations to charge their phones, that sort of thing. So she said this, and if it doesn't make you feel some type of way, it should. It should make Ukrainians feel some type of way. The fact that this is a woman where Zelensky has at least, I know, 3 houses, one of them in Miami, and they've been obviously found to have corrupt connections that we've talked about ad nauseum on the show, and they are wealthy. They're doing Vogue photo shoots, and yet she expects and they expect Ukrainians to live literally like in war zones, right? To have water, to not have access to power, heating, especially in this coming winter where apparently it's going to be one of the colder winters that we've had. And she's basically speaking for them on their behalf and saying, yes, you guys will endure. You're ready to endure 2 to 3 years without heat. The winters here aren't mild. We're talking, I mean, 10 degrees Celsius at like right now, and it's only November. It's not even December yet. It gets worse. Not even December. It gets worse January, February. Those are 2 worst months that we have here. And I say here because Moscow isn't that far from Ukraine. It's really not. It's really close. So when I'm talking about the Donbass and when we're talking about these regions that are going to be the Donbass that's a part of the Russian Federation will be fine. But if we go a little bit west to Kiev, and these people are not going to be happy. And it just makes you think, like, what are Ukrainians going to do about it? Like, they should start realizing that these people don't care about them at all. So there's that.
Did
So
you see
those are a
did you
couple
see
things.
the Chappelle Saturday Night Live monologue, fam?
No.
Yeah, it's kind of like we were talking about it this morning. We're looking for one comedian out there, one star, one Hollywood person that is maybe, kind of just push back harsh against Ukraine. Like who's the most? It's kind of crazy because next Tuesday we're gonna have on Dave Smith and Jimmy Dore. I think those are the highest level comedians as far as followers to really push back about what's going on in Ukraine. David Letterman just did an interview with Zelensky in a subway station, for crying out loud, in Ukraine, and Dave Chappelle was pretty much like, he was kind of condoning it of sorts and whatnot. I was not happy with his little monologue. Steve made a meme, fam, a meme with a boomer I am. And it was Clayton Bigsby, the black white supremacist character from the Chappelle show. He's blind and he's black, but he's a white supremacist because he can't see himself. And he's just with his eyes closed and it says, Slava Ukraine. Fam. Oh my God. Guys, do us a favor.
I don't have normal humor. You know that. I don't find things funny that most people find funny. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but you try to have fun and be joke.
Of course I try to have fun, but
come on.
I don't know why is that funny?
Guys, if you're over Slava Ukraine, if you're over on our Rockfin, that means you are a premium member. That is a great way to help the show. While Fee is in commie heaven, pasta's in election hell, you can go over and become a premium member for just $9.99 a month. I believe there's a yearly subscription for a reduced price if you can afford that. I don't know what they're charging over there, but $9.99 a month gives you all, not only our premium content, but everybody on the platform, their premium content as well for that one price. Here's the thing. We'll never put everything anything behind a paywall. We're just doing this so we can make a few bucks financially. We can watch it for free over on the Rumble at the Combo Couch right now. Fam, we got 41 people watching on the Rumble. Usually Fred Edwards hanging out. I don't see him there, but thank you to everybody there hanging out in the chat. Please share the stream, get it out there. You can leave a Rumble rant, which is like a tip. You can leave if you're a premium member, that's what we really need you to do. Go over there and become a premium member. And of course, on YouTube's, for some subjects, guys, we can't talk about everything, but we can talk about a lot of things. And we are talking about stuff today. We have a great show. Let's dive into the first topic. That was Fam's little, just to start off the show, kind of little thing going on. Fam, we do have some new stuff going on, though. I like the way you titled this one. Admission, Hunter Biden laptop is true. Duh.
So the mainstream media is on a rampage to basically backtrack from everything that it's been denying. We're going to start with this one, which is a Hunter Biden laptop story that they not only denied, but they mocked, called conspiracy theory. And some are still clinging on to that term and are saying, that, well, this still doesn't say what all these conspiracy theorists, right-wingers were saying, blah, blah, blah.
Remember what they were saying, Sam, by the way? Unverified sources. We cannot verify it. It's unverifiable. That was the thing they said. And I was like,
And
you're a fucking journalist. Verify it, asshole. Pick up the
well,
phone.
and not only that, they censored everybody. Like Twitter took down the New York Post tweets. They completely censored everything, and they took down people's accounts because of it, which I think is the most important thing, because when we're talking about censorship, we're talking about only allowing one certain kind of narrative, right? And yeah, I mean, they always say this, oh, this has been fact checked, this has been verified. By whom? By your own goons. So it just doesn't count. So I mean, it's ridiculous. So of course, the New York Post, who broke the story initially, said CBS was mocked for Hunter Biden laptop report 2 years after the Post broke the story. And I mean, it's more than 2 years ago. And this is what CBS's Leslie Stahl said 2 years ago. Donald Trump told CBS's Leslie Stahl on 60 Minutes the Hunter Biden laptop was real and should be covered by the media. Stahl said it couldn't be verified. 2 years later, CBS News has finally verified it. Trump was right again. This is what conservative founder of Outkick.com, Clay Travis, said on Twitter. And a lot of people just started tearing into the CBS, and basically Representative Ronnie Jackson from Texas, a Republican, said, remember when Leslie Stahl of CBS told President Trump the Hunter Biden laptop story couldn't be verified? 2 years later, CBS has finally admitted the laptop is real. Mainstream media hacks are lazy and incompetent. President Trump was right all along. So they're really focused on the fact that Trump was right. Right? They're really focused on the fact that Trump was right. They're really focused on that the media is lazy and incompetent. Yeah, they're incompetent and lazy, but they know what they're doing. I mean, they're doing the bidding of the State Department, and that's all this is about. Like, they're not just, oh, they didn't just not work hard enough to verify this story. They weren't allowed to. That's what people need to realize. They weren't allowed to verify this
Or
story.
either, if they're not allowed to, they had to collude together to make sure, you know what I'm saying? I mean, listen, the people that they've hired, the people that are working in mainstream media now are completely bought into the narrative. Not even the fact that they're just getting paid to tell lies or dupe. They actually believe in those lies. That's the type of person they've kind of, what's the word I've used? Groomed for these positions. And they believe they're better than us. They believe they're smarter than us. They believe they deserve a couple $100,000 per show. I mean, it's just ridiculous. They don't have news anchors anymore. They have paid propagandists. So let's take a look at Donald. Fam, do you want me to call him the Don or just Donald on this one?
Fam, whatever your little heart desires.
I'm going to mute us up. Guys, Convo Couch, we're over on Rumble. Check us out. We're on Rockfin. Become a premium member. Help out independent news. Here's the Don, fam. Oh, by the way, China.
I think it's one of the biggest scandals I've ever seen, and you don't cover it. You want to talk about?
Well, because it can't be verified.
You want to talk about insignificant things?
I'm telling you.
Of course it can be verified. Excuse me, they found the laptop. Leslie.
Can't be verified.
What can't be verified?
The laptop.
Why do you say that?
Because
even the family hasn't, the family on the laptop, he's gone into hiding. For 5 days, he's gone into hiding.
He's preparing for your debate.
Oh, it's taken him 5 days to prepare? I doubt it. Okay,
all right. So let's get back to the name calling.
I think it's one of the biggest scandals I've ever seen.
Yeah. I mean, if you guys
they didn't get to the part. There's another part where they goes, no. She just says no. She goes, no. Yeah. And fam, I didn't even watch this video until right now. I've seen this a long time ago, obviously, when it happened. But what was I saying? Can't be verified. It's like they all get one email, right? And they all freaking stick to the same story. Or like you said, they can't do things and they're told what to do.
Yeah. And there was a video. I don't know if I should be in there, but
it was in the first one. You want on the New York Times one or the one on Fox? Because there is one on Fox. There's a video on Fox one too.
Let's see. I don't know.
It
Is
says,
it the one where they're
Representative Comer reacts to CBS verifying Hunter Biden laptop after 2 years.
yeah, you can play that one. There is another
And
one.
I'll bring the other one up too as well. When you went to Clay Travis, I closed the other thing out. My bad, fams. I jumped the gun. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Mission Hunter Biden laptop is true. And fam put in quotations, duh. We got to talk while there's a commercial because that's just ridiculous. I'm sorry. It's just ridiculous. They put on like a long ass commercial too, fam, like a long one. Guys, do us a favor. Go over to the Rumble. Help us out. The Convo Couch. We're talking about Hunter Biden's laptop. Now I guess it could be verified, fam. Here it is.
All of a sudden.
All of a sudden.
Yeah.
$769 days. That from the New York Post after CBS News verifies the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop more than 2 years after the Post's explosive reporting. Watch.
Independent forensic review to determine its authenticity. Senior investigative correspondent Catherine Harris joins us now with what we found.
The laptop data we had analyzed showed no evidence it was faked or tampered with.
Here now, Republican Congressman James Comer, ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, who says investigating the Biden family will be a top GOP priority after winning control of the House. Congressman, thank you for coming on. We appreciate it. I want to put this up on the screen because this dates back to 2020. These are headlines from various media outlets. The Washington Post, the truth behind Hunter Biden non-scandal. New York Times, what we know and don't about Hunter Biden and a laptop. Washington Post, 3 weeks before Election Day, Trump allies go after Hunter and Joe Biden. And finally, Washington Post, Trump's fake new Biden scandal has a deeper purpose. Bannon revealed it. It's not just embarrassing journalistically, it's downright dishonest. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, kudos to CBS. Better late than never. Now, let's just remember what the White House has said about all this. They claimed for 2 years that the laptop was not Hunter Biden's. Then when it became apparent that it was Hunter Biden's, they then moved the goalpost and said, well, the stuff on there about Hunter may be true, but anything implicating Joe Biden certainly is not true. It's something the Republicans have added as a folder to the original laptop. Now CBS finally comes through after doing a very thorough forensic audit and determines that, no, this is the original laptop and there have been no files added to it other than what Hunter Biden himself put in there. So for me, that's a good thing. After Thursday, the White House did nothing but attack our press conference and our investigation and saying that anything that we presented there was disinformation.
Except, sir, I would say, just to give you a little pushback on the better late than never thing, is it better late than never? Because CBS did finally come out and verify this, but they didn't dig into what you just said, which is the president himself. They kind of left it there as if there was something big coming, and this was one of those cover your fanny type moments.
All right, I think we get the picture. I just wanted us
I
to
want to
discuss
talk a little bit about that too as well, because
yeah,
things, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Yes. So, if you want to go first.
Well, I just want to talk about this whole thing. Now we're going to investigate Hunter and Joe. It's very convenient that they're doing it now when it seems almost obvious to some degree that they're going to find a way to get Kamala to go and run, or somebody else to go and run, or somebody else to go in that spot. I don't even think the elites are willing to push it that far with this guy, the way he's been just like so incoherent, for the whole 2 years he has been president. And once again, 2 years in a day is what they want to get to. Steve talks about it all the time, because then Kamala Harris can serve the 2 years, the rest of the term, and run 2 terms herself, and they can rig elections for the next 10 years, and we can have this WEF representative. Not to say that they might not have, DeSantis do it or somebody else, whatever the case may be, but it just seems the timing seems very convenient. And let me say this much. None of this stuff in Ukraine would be possible if it wasn't for the help of the Republicans like Lindsey Graham and McCain to go whip up all the fucking noise about Putin being bad, that we have to support these Nazis and have a color revolution to get them to go in there and change places. I mean, none of this would have been possible if it wasn't for those guys help setting the stage. And we just saw the list of all these people who got money from FTX. There's a lot of Republicans there. So really, to tell you the truth, I think it's going to distract from what really is going on further to make it go to more of the partisan kind of bickering back and forth. And yeah, it seems like it's almost planned theater that they're getting ready to go after Joe Biden and throw him under the bus at the end of his to-do. Go ahead, fam.
Yeah, exactly. Joe Biden is ranking very low in the popularity polls. Most people, I think over 60% of people don't support Joe Biden, especially younger people. They're done with him. He's very weak. He's the easy target. He was never a really great candidate. He was fifth. He went from fifth place to first place with a phone call from Obama, and of course, a lot of other things that we've talked about here. And this is pretty much just a theatrical virtue signal to both parties. The Democrats saying, oh no, you can't go after Joe Biden, these Republicans, and then the Republicans going after Joe Biden. But is he really going to be held accountable for all the things he's done? No, he's not. He never has been held accountable for anything. I mean, I think that it's going to feel good. It's going to look nice, whatever, but I don't think we're going to get any sort of justice out of this. Joe Biden's dealings were more nefarious with Burisma. When we go back to talking about Burisma and what led to, of course, the Maidan revolution as well, that is to me far more nefarious than anything that was found on the laptop that the right is trying to tie to China. I just don't. Joe Biden isn't in China's pocket. Joe Biden literally almost started a war with China, like the Biden administration did, by sending Pelosi, by sending a bunch of people. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But this is just, I agree 100%, like just another distraction. I don't think we're going to get anything out of this. It's fine seeing it. It's fine seeing, it's like, okay, great. We've been vindicated again on this issue of being right about this, just like with COVID, just like with the elections, just like with a lot of things. But at the end of the day, I don't think we're going to see any sort of like actual justice because the bank robbers are investigating themselves. And a lot of these people, as you said, were involved in this whole thing. And Joe Biden is like untouchable. I think the worst that could happen is he's not going to run again, and Kamala Harris will come in or somebody else. And look out for DeSantis, because DeSantis is like the establishment favorite for the Republican side. He's definitely going to be stealing some votes from Donald Trump, because unfortunately too many people, especially outside the United States, who don't know the intricacies of our electoral politics, think that DeSantis is some sort of like, anti-establishment guy just because of his COVID policies and his governing of Florida. He isn't. He is extremely, he's an extreme war hawk. He would take us to war with China in 2 seconds. He would also start regime change operations in Latin America, which would literally just increase the immigration aspect. If you complain about immigration, well, stop regime change operations, because they're literally the number one cause that leads to mass immigration. So, I think DeSantis is going to be the one to look at in the next, as far as the Republicans go.
China's an interesting situation. I can't wait till we get to that section, because there's so much to unpack there. There's so many things to look at. Like, because you did put up some interesting points, because most people will be like, what are you talking about? Joe Biden's in China's pocket. We saw the whole deal with the big guy and the laptop and these deals that were going on. But yeah, the whole sending.
Those are U.S. investments, though.
Yeah,
what were they? Specifics. Those were U.S. investments. And of course, there was Metabiota and all these biotech and biolab related investments. But these are companies in China, but these are like investment companies. This is like US led investments. It's not the Chinese government that is somehow working with Hunter and Joe Biden and we're talking about two diametrically opposed systems. And in China, they literally kick people out if they don't they literally kick them out if they're not in line with what the Chinese Communist Party believes. we've seen the videos.
Yeah.
So I just have a hard time thinking that that the Joe Biden is in the CCP's pocket. I just don't see any evidence of that. What I do see evidence of is there are pockets in China that are either funded or controlled or pro regime change, and they do want the West more involved, because there are nothing is like black and white. You're not just going to have everybody that thinks the same on either end. So you are going to have people that are like, okay, well, maybe we can make some deals here. That doesn't mean that this is like.
I just want to also highlight the two things we talked about with the going to the Taiwan. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, that's just theater, really? Like Pelosi going with Paul, going there when they were told not to go, and then a week later, a Republican-led group goes there to Taiwan. And not to mention that all these people that were on the Hong Kong Democracy Freedom Act, which was anti-China, anti-Beijing, were all Democrats, and they were all involved too as well. So I mean, and then of course you have the ships hanging out in the South China Sea on a regular basis, and this is Joe Biden who's in office. So I don't think it is cut and dry as some of the people on the other side do say. Like you said, fam, there's investment. I think it's definitely more nuanced to what's going on. So I'm glad we're bringing up all the points that are involved. Now, fam, this is the next topic over here. We're going to talk about Julian. I wish we could have got Misty or Gordon on today, but they are busy. It's a busy time of year. We'll get them on maybe some time to talk about this again soon. But this is from The Guardian, fam. I'll try to get it up. It just sucks with the ads, but here you go. Did you want to say anything else about China, or did I?
No, China's a different subject.
I mean,
That's
right. That's why you don't want to say anything about it.
So the reason I put this right here is because the media is also backtracking off of this. So they are responsible. Okay. We're talking about The Guardian, the New York Times, the Washington Post. These are the same culprits that were responsible for Julian Assange's jailing, because without them backing this and pretending that Julian wasn't a journalist or a publisher, putting him in the role of a whistleblower, which I get really irritated when people say he's a whistleblower. He's not a whistleblower. He's a publisher and a journalist. A whistleblower is somebody like Edward Snowden. He wasn't the one that gave the information. He simply published the information. So that is something that people, when they talk about Julian, have to be correct about. So Julian Assange, this was released by The Guardian, New York Post, and several other major mainstream media outlets. Now, publishing is not a crime. Media groups urge U.S. to drop Julian Assange charges. The first outlets to publish WikiLeaks material, including The Guardian, come together to oppose prosecution. The U.S. government must drop its prosecution of WikiLeaks co-founder Julian Assange because it's undermining press freedom, according to media organizations that first helped him publish leaked diplomatic cables. 12 years ago today, The Guardian, The New York Times, Le Monde, Der Spiegel, and El País collaborated to release excerpts from 250,000 documents obtained by Assange in the Cablegate leak. The material leaked to WikiLeaks by the then American soldier, Chelsea Manning, exposed the inner workings of U.S. diplomacy around the world. And so this is pretty much how it happened. And so they came by together and said, hey, Julian should be freed. He shouldn't be attacked because publishing is not a crime. And we know that he is facing extradition into the United States. He's right now being held in Belmarsh prison, facing over 175 years of imprisonment. And they wrote this entire letter, and it says at the end, it says, publishing is not a crime. The U.S. government should end its prosecution of Julian Assange for publishing secrets. 12 years ago, on November 28th, 2010, our 5 international media outlets, the ones I mentioned, published a series of revelations in cooperation with WikiLeaks that made the headlines around the globe. And then they talk about Cablegate. And in the words of the New York Times, the documents told the unvarnished story of how the government makes its biggest decisions, the decisions that cost the country most heavily in lives and money. Even now in 2022, journalists and historians trying to figure out where to read. Let me see. Even now in 2022, if you just scroll down a little bit. Yeah, you're way further up there. Journalists and historians continue to publish new revelations using the unique trove of documents. For Julian Assange, publisher of WikiLeaks, the publication of Cablegate and several other related leaks had the most severe consequences. So then they talk about his arrest, blah, 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 the Obama administration. And then they end up saying, this indictment sets a dangerous precedent and threatens to undermine America's First Amendment and the freedom of the press. So they all signed this, right? The same outlets, the New York Times, the Guardian, Le Monde, Der Spiegel, El País, they all signed this, the editors and the publishers, saying that it's time for the US government to end its prosecution of Julian Assange for publishing these secrets. So 12 years too late, guys. I'm not going to give credit to these outlets because they were the ones that used this information that Julian got, because it was WikiLeaks that got it, because he only got direct source materials, meaning like there was, when it came to WikiLeaks, not when it came to Julian, because Julian would often write op-eds, he would often write his own stuff. But when it came to what WikiLeaks would publish, they would often publish just factual data. Okay, here's an email, exchange between somebody. Here's a report. That's all WikiLeaks was, which is hence the name. This is why it was called WikiLeaks. So that's what it would do. It would just leak this information from their sources that were protected. And when these journals published this with that information, they didn't get attacked the way Julian did. They didn't get jailed the way Julian did. And they still bought themselves out to allow the smearing of him as a quote unquote rapist, as a Russian propagandist. If you go through the posts on Twitter of the New York Times or of the Guardian, you'll see lots of little fascists in the comments talking about how he's a propagandist, how he has ties to Putin, how all of this. I mean, they're still talking about this. People saying, no, this is wrong. He should rot in jail. I mean, some of these accounts are real. Obviously not all of them, but a lot of them are real, because this is how people have been made to feel about Julian Assange. Like he's some sort of, on the more right-thinking side, he betrayed America. On the left, he's a Russian propagandist, right? So it's just really shitty. And I think that them doing this now, just like what Pasta said about Hunter Biden and them going after Joe Biden, the timing is everything, folks. You can't just isolate the timing of these events. There's no way this is happening because they suddenly had oh my gosh, we're suddenly becoming moral creatures and we're having a come to Jesus moment and we just care about justice and press freedoms and all this stuff. No, that's not why this is happening. This is happening for a specific reason. And I want to point out a couple things that I didn't get to talk about. There were a few days ago, and I think it's still happening, WikiLeaks documents were disappearing reportedly, according to reports, by the millions. They were just you couldn't access these documents. The site wasn't working. So all of that was happening. And then, of course, then what that to me, right next to that is very telling, right? And this is from, can you, let me who is this from? I can't see the
Lauren
Gizmodo. So they wrote this and they got it from the Daily Dot, which broke the news first. WikiLeaks website is falling apart as Julian Assange faces extradition. His once prominent platform for government document reveals and data dumps has seen better days. So if you scroll down, you can see what they're talking about. Pages not loading, information being vanished. Out of the 65 internal links listed on the site's central leaks page, 20 were broken or led to an error page. This is according to Gizmodo's assessment at the time of writing. And the WikiLeaks had claimed on this recent anniversary that it had released around 10 million documents, but only 3,000 were still available on the site. So they're obviously going through stuff. A lot of people started talking about, hey, what the hell is going on with WikiLeaks? Why is this happening? This is saying not found. It's leading to nowhere.
404
There's
page
just
not found. That was very, very common. That's going on. We had a chance to ask Julian's father. I got a chance to ask him. I think my question is like, what is the way forward now with WikiLeaks or anybody picking up the mantle? He explained that WikiLeaks is still a valuable source, that you can still go there, that there's millions of documents people can take a look at, that even though Julian was jailed, there's still an archive of history of just docs of released. And, the reason why people get kind of confused with Julian and call him a whistleblower at times, fam, is that he's provided a tool for whistleblowers, but he's still a publisher. And that's what people have to understand. There should be no reason why they're jailing him for publishing information. And, it was the information, it's the tool that he provided which scared them the most. And that's why they want to make sure that anybody who can provide access to information that the government is trying to hide will pay a hefty price. And they want to make sure that Julian is shown to be tortured and punished the way he's being tortured and punished.
Yeah, and I don't think this is coincidental that these mainstream media outlets are suddenly saying, okay, you can you should drop the charges and let him go. I think there's something more going on. And I also think in regard to the fact that the US is losing its hold on the entire world right now. I mean, this unilateral world that existed where they get to go around and pretty much bully everybody is changing. We're seeing Russia, China, Iran, India, Pakistan, BRICS countries come together and basically try to reduce any sort of reliance entirely on the US dollar. That's what's happening. They're trying to completely go find another way. And I think in terms of what people are figuring out right now via Russia, Ukraine, what's going on and the lies, I think that is also really revealing so much about the US State Department. The bot farm, their support of fascists in Ukraine, all of these things that are being pushed back. That's why the censoring has been going on so much. I think that's a huge part of this whole situation. And I do think that there is some sort of situation going on because WikiLeaks not working is really suspect. And people not being able to, for example, talk to Julian. People say, a lot of activists have been saying, we want to hear from Julian. We want to see what's going on. The whole, what is it, cryptocurrency scenario. There's been a lot of interesting things going on. And, a lot of people have criticisms about some of his defense team in terms of who has been involved and all that sort of thing. So while it's good in terms of more voices calling for Julian to not be extradited, to have the charges dropped, to basically be released, I think that's good. Nobody here is saying it's not good, but I'm saying you should look at what's not being said, what you're not being told, why this is happening right now. What is the purpose of this going on right now, right? And there's just no coincidences when it comes to politics and war criminals and all of that. There's just not. If the media published this, it's not because they suddenly felt, like they wanted to feel good and say, okay, we're going to morally change our entire stance for the last 12 years. If they publish this, it's because they've been allowed to publish this. We're talking about The Guardian and the New York Times here. We're not, we're talking about the New York Times has lied constantly about literally everything. Was one of the people lying about the missile in that they blamed on Russia that turned out to be Ukrainian. We're not talking about independent media or media that's been reliable. We're talking about mainstream media, pundits and arms of the State Department, which is the New York Times, right? Others like the Washington Post as well, and so on. So I don't know. I don't trust this at all whatsoever. I think they might be going where they see the wind blowing, but I think it might be a little bit more than that.
Fam, I'm going to read some super rays real quick while I just sent you a text message. So take a look at that real quick. Guys, AREM is over hanging out on our Rockfin. Guys, remember, if you can help us out, be a Rockfin premium member for $9.99 a month. That is what's one of the best ways you can help us out. There's other ways, of course, all listed below on our descriptions over there. We have a Patreon if you want to go over there and help. But for $9.99, and if you can watch premium content, that's what we need you to do. We need premium content watchers. That's how that that platform works, but we'll never put it behind a paywall because we will have it on Rumble at the Convo Couch. So that's there. Remember, it's World Cup time, guys. Let us know who you're following. Put it in the chat. I know Fam is rooting for Italy, but they didn't qualify, Fam, so you got to root for somebody else. And don't tell us who you're rooting for in the Iran-USA game. I don't want to know because I don't want to answer that question either. Over on Fam, I said I don't want to hear the answer to that question.
Why wouldn't you want to hear the answer to that question?
Who you rooting for? Iran
Anybody who knows me would know exactly who I'm rooting for. Why the hell would I be rooting for the United States? The only time I'm rooting for the United States is when they're going against England. That's literally the only time.
Fam, we have a we have a Rumble rant. Okay, fam. Blank State. I don't even know who Blank State is. I can't stand it when people hide behind their names. But hey, man, Blank State, welcome to the show. Thank you so much. If I know you, you should say hi. Pasta, since you've been cozying up to the far right Mises Caucus, far right, why don't you explain Austrian economics to the class? Or better yet, would you consider bringing on someone who considered an expert? Of course I would. And I've had some people I've talked to from the Mises Caucus themselves who are Austrian economics experts that I still have a lot to understand. But I can tell you this much. I don't care what system it is. If you're going to change a system in midstream, there's going to be a lot of things left over, a lot of holes that have to be plugged. You can't just switch to a system and think that it's going to be okay. It doesn't work. And that's why I say mixed system, but that's beside the point. That's my personal opinion. And like I said, next Tuesday, we'll have Dave and Jimmy Dore on. Clint Russell will be here as well. It's the part 2. Guys, far right, let me see. They're anti-interventionist, the party, right? They're against regime change. They're for freedom of the press. They're from freedom of speech. That's not things that are far right to me. Those are things that I'm going to make a compromise for. Are there things I don't like? Of course. But they're the only legitimate real third party in the country right now. I'd like to see more different voices on the debate stage. They have a lot more ballot access. So there are things that are very entertaining and I like about the Libertarian Party and the leadership of the Libertarian Party. Does that mean I agree with everything? Of course not. That's why I'm calling it the Great Compromise. And that's where I stand on that.
If I were going to criticize pasta, and this is to blank slate or blank state, is it slate or state? Anyway,
let's see.
If I was going to criticize pasta, state, blank slate would have been better. If I was going to criticize pasta, I would start by criticizing him. Why the hell are you even participating in this mockery of a process when you damn well know that it's not a valid election and we don't have fair elections? And you're literally, we're not going to change systems like vote by voting ourselves out of this. That would be my criticism of not just pasta, but anybody that's still talking about elections beside in the way of like saying, okay, this is how bad the elections are. This is why we don't have fair elections. If you're not talking about that, if you're still talking about voting and getting parties in there when our election system is shit, I just don't see the point of that. So that's where my criticism comes of libertarians, Greens, everybody, because they're not talking about how awful our election system is. They're not doing anything about it. And DC, I don't think we have time to do anything about it. So
DC,
anyway.
I'm more about your style libertarian, the socialist libertarian, the leftist libertarian. But you don't just get your way by jumping up and down and stomping your feet. You got to go in there. You got to rub elbows. You got to make some friends. And you got to move people a certain direction. You certainly tried to do that. I'm kind of going off your spirit and your energy. He says that blank state equals no state because he's an anarchist, fam. But
don't get me started on
an interesting way of challenging and criticizing his friends. And you are my friend, brother, and hope to see you one day soon. Fam, the next subject is really nice. No U.S. hypocrisy on Qatar. No love for Israel. Serbia stands with Russia. I got to see if I don't know. I didn't check the doc to see if you put this certain clip in there, man, because dude, there's been some trolling at the friggin' World Cup. I'm pretty sure that you're gonna have a lot of this stuff there. So let me start pulling it up and getting it ready, fam. But go ahead and introduce the topic.
Right. So the United States has been criticizing Qatar for being anti-LGBTQ. And my issue with this whole thing is not that I'm anti-LGBTQ. That is irrelevant. You are going to another country. You are a guest in that country. If you knowingly go to that country and they say, hey, no propaganda of this and that, no rainbow flags, because they're a religious country, and you literally pay money to go to that country knowing this, and then you expect them to change their entire government and their entire religion and way of life, you are no better than like American exceptionalist war criminal. Really, like, you have that same mindset. You think that you can just come into another country and they're going to somehow be forced to adopt your beliefs just because you feel like you're superior and that you think you know better. Hey, you may be on the better side of that issue. It's irrelevant. You're going to somebody else's country and they're hosting the game. I'm so sorry. Like, if like, why the hell would you go there then? Don't go there. Boycott it then. That's what I would do if it was my number one issue. I wouldn't go there. I would say, you know what? If I'm not allowed to go there with my girlfriend, or if I'm not allowed to go there with my boyfriend and make out with them in public, I think that's wrong. So I'm not going to go. That's your right to do. But the United States, of course, this is what they do, because they have to virtue signal about what they believe to be the only way towards freedom and towards all of this sort of, what is the extreme woke mob. And you also have the extreme anti-woke mob. I hate both sides of it because they're just literally a distraction. And so then this is what Press TV wrote when Iran actually defeated the United States in Qatar. And this is a big deal because Qatar, of course, is a more conservative country. Iran has been having some of these protests, which have been completely found to be far bigger than what they actually are. But Iran defeated Wales 2-0 in the World Cup. Okay. And the United States, the EU, the UK have been long criticizing Iran, backing in my opinion, color revolution that they've been trying to push, using the whole, they don't want to wear hijabs. First of all, it's not a hijab, it's a headscarf. That is the situation. And the same thing is that I'm going to say about China. Yes, there is dissent. Yes, there are people especially younger people, that want some changes. That doesn't mean that there's not a method and a funding and a promotion by the West to these protests. So it's a big deal that Iran won this game against Wales. It's a huge deal. And yeah. So, and I just wanted to point this out too. This was by Afshin. If you go back to it, sorry.
Afshin Rattanzi.
Yeah, if you go back Britain currently sanctions life-saving medicines for use in Iran and overthrew its democratically elected government. So just a reminder as to why this is a big deal for people.
All right. I'm going to get the next one up.
So, I mean, again, there's just a lot of hypocrisy when it comes to Qatar, when it comes to people complaining about not being able to go. And one of those people is Anthony Blinken. Anthony Blinken had to talk about how the United States isn't supporting this. And he did this whole video where he visited Qatar, right? And he criticized FIFA and Qatar for not allowing the teams at the World Cup to wear LGBTQ armbands. This is what they're focused on LGBTQ armbands, not on, the United States is arming fascists like Nazis, wearing swastikas all over the place and giving them billions of dollars worth of weapons. Oh, no. Qatar is not allowing you to wear LGBTQ armbands. Okay. And then he went on to do this whole video, Pasta. He did this video, and if you can just get it up, where he basically said that this is concerning because this is a restriction on free speech. That you can't wear a rainbow armband is a restriction on free speech. The United States, of course, is the last country that should be talking about restricting free speech, very closely followed by the UK. And He said, especially when it's about diversity and inclusion. Let's take a look at what he said and see what you guys think.
It's always concerning from my perspective when we see any restrictions on freedom of expression. It's especially so when the expression is for diversity and for inclusion. And in my judgment, at least, no one on a football pitch should be forced to choose between supporting these values and playing for their team. It's always concerning from my perspective.
Right. So, guys, Russia was literally not allowed to attend the World Cup because they're Russian. That's it. I mean, they weren't allowed to attend. Imagine having just being it's disgusting, right? Why is nobody talking about that? Like, they're not allowed to go to certain places in Europe, yet we're talking about an LGBT or a rainbow armband that's really not going to make or break the difference, right? And again, this is just more and more virtue signaling. I don't know if you have anything to say about that, Pasta, but it really does irk me because there are more important things that we could be worried about Qatar or about Saudi Arabia or about any of these countries. But yet, of course, this is what they focus on, and they know exactly who they're talking to.
By the way, while you just mentioned that, I want to kind of bring this up really here quickly about the ban that took place. Qatar is a honorary NATO state that they were just given special NATO status. But here it goes: Russia's team got banned. How are Russian fans enjoying this World Cup? And I mean, it's just bullshit.
Yeah,
it's just bullshit. So,
yeah, I mean, where's the freedom of expression and inclusivity and all of that diversity? Why are Russians completely not allowed to it? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But there was some solidarity shown to Russia. But first, let's go ahead and hear Blinken's statement. I want you, or not Blinken, this next one. So they were taking their lead from the German interior minister. Germany is another country that loves to virtue signal about stuff. So this person sported a One Love armband at a Japan game, and later some Qataris in the protocol seats were wearing armbands to support the Palestinian causes. So look at that. So you wanna support the LGBTQ supporters? Well, then we're gonna wear some Palestinian armbands. And that is the thing that I want to point out. Not only were some people showing solidarity with Russia, they were showing solidarity with Palestine, and they really had no love for Israel. And there are tons and tons of videos just showing this, and nobody just sat there and said, hey, do this. No, this is coming from the people that reside there. Why? Well, because they see Palestine as their brothers and sisters. But notice that the United States doesn't send this, virtue signals about how disgusted they are that they're not supporting, somebody wouldn't be supporting Palestinian armbands. They're not, they pick and choose the things that they want to stand behind. And it's just so much hypocrisy during this whole thing. It's insane. So there was greetings from Qatar from Serbia. Now, Serbia lost against Brazil. And, Brazil is, I was with Brazil because it's one of the best teams and stuff. But Serbia really, the Russians were really with Serbia. And I understand why, because Serbia is a close ally of Russia. They've stood with Russia. There's a lot of just camaraderie between the two nations. And let's just watch some of the support they gave. So they had the Russian flag there. And this is important. Why? Because Russia was excluded, as we just showed you guys. And yeah, that's, I mean, just shows that, you want to talk about freedom of expression. Well, here's some freedom of expression for you. And it's not always going to be something that you just approve of. The United States, again, thinking this whole that you're going to go into someone's country and they're not going to have a say as to what they actually want or what they believe in is ridiculous, right? And there were Serbian fans that not only were waving Russian flags, but they were also waving Palestinian flags during the game between Serbia and Brazil. So there you go. There's people supporting Palestine at the World Cup, which is nice to see. It's nice to see that while sports aren't necessarily political, they've made these sports political, right? By banning Russia. They've made that. So at that point, then what are you going to do? Well, then if it's going to be political, it's going to be political, right?
Yep.
And the other thing I wanted to mention was the Katyusha. The Qatari orchestra actually performed the Katyusha, which is this
I was just
famous
looking for that.
Russian song.
Yeah.
And
that was great.
Yeah, and yeah, it's great.
It's not coming up on the article.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. We can just. But I just wanted to mention that it should be out somewhere.
I'm gonna look for it on Twitter real quick. So let me give you 2 seconds.
Yeah, I mean it's a famous Russian song. It's, if you hear it, you'll probably know it. It's been played like pretty much everywhere, and it's really nice when people perform it because there's a special type of dance you have to do, and it's actually really, really cool. It's not like the Rasputin song, but it has its own little thing. And I don't know if you guys know, but I learned the Rasputin song.
Gross.
There was a moment a few years ago. No, it was a long time ago. Like when I was a teenager, I learned it. They had that dance, whatever, that We Dance game or whatever. And they had the Rasputin song on it. And me and my cousin and Johnny might, I don't know, I don't think Johnny knew it as well, but we were obsessed with it. And then recently I played it again before I came to Russia. I said, hey, this is a really great workout because the Rasputin song, you have to go all the way down and jump up and down and your legs have to go this way. It's an intense workout. I literally kid you not, you're sweating in minutes because there's just so much movement. So I wish if somebody's at the World Cup, you guys should break down and do that song because it would make me happy.
I think I got it right here, fam. So let me see if this is it. This might be it.
Fam. Yeah.
Fam, I think it's also should be pointed out that they did that during the USA England game.
Oh shit!
It was when USA and England were playing together. They were out there.
That's trolling. That's
totally
classic trolling.
Totally
I love
fucking
it.
trolling the Qatari band. Fam, we should be there with our friend. I can't believe we're not there, but
I know
there's too much shit going on, guys. We love you. Thank you so much. You know all the ways you can help us out. Fam, you have an Israeli tweet. You have one more though, I think.
Yes.
Let me get it on up, fam. You guys know all the things to do to help us out. Hit the like button, hit the share button. We can really use the help. Thank you to all our Patreons out there who've always helped and support us. People who've is it this one? Okay. Yeah. I mean, just great stuff. We played this too. This has been playing like hotcakes everywhere, fam.
Yeah.
Everybody knows this video right now. I'm sure, I'm sure what's his name's been playing it. Ben Rubenstein's probably been playing this like crazy.
So yeah, these football fans refuse to speak to Israeli channels, and let's see what they said. Let's see.
Ecuador, this yes for Israel. No. Yeah. No. Why? Arabic.
Which channel is this?
Israel channel. You don't like us? Ecuador,
Ecuador, fam. Ecuador. Like, no, you're not. No, you're not. No.
So okay, so some people might say, well, is that anti-Semitic? No, they're not. They're not going on Israeli channels because they're anti like Jewish people. They're not going on Israeli channels because of what's going on with Palestine and Syria. So
there's a way
that's
to
the
be
reality.
pro-Jewish and anti-Israel. There's
It's called being anti-Zionist.
Yes.
You can be pro the people who practice a religion or whoever
anti-Zionist. That's it.
Certain ethnicity, but you can be anti-Zionist, and like that. I think people are really messing that up lately, and acting like, oh, if you criticize Israel or if you talk about the reality of certain things and the way certain things work and like how it's just and again, like Max Blumenthal did a whole thing, a really good thread on the Kanye West situation and how like everybody was just like, oh my God, he's being so anti-Semitic and blah blah. But it's like, yeah, he could have clarified more what he was talking about. But is he really a danger, or are these people really a danger? No, like that there is like a certain thing that needs to be criticized about the Zionism and the industry that controls so much in politically. We're talking about AIPAC, we're talking about these institutions that actually do have political control. And then of course when you talk about Palestine, they're Semitic people too. So yeah, I was glad to see some pushback. If anything, it's got to come from these people, right? Attending a football game that has nothing to do with politics, but they made it political the moment they started saying, oh, you should be allowed to wear these bans. Oh, Russia can't participate. Oh, they made it political. So the people in turn have to respond to that.
Fam, good stuff, fam. So who is your squad, fam? Who are you rooting for now at the World Cup? Like, now that Russia's been thrown out and you said you're not rooting for the USA.
Well, I like Iran, obviously. Brazil, Serbia. Did Mexico lose?
Mexico's still in it, though they can still move on, I believe.
No,
They only played one game, so they're still in it.
Mexico. Yeah.
Mexico's cool. You were rooting for Brazil though, and against Serbia.
Yeah, Brazil, Mexico, Serbia,
and Brazil over Serbia.
Iran.
Terrible, fam.
I just thought they were going to win, and they did.
Of course, they're the best, the number one ranked team. They better win. Guys, you know what to do. Watch us over on Rumble if you want to watch it for free. Of course, we don't put anything behind a paywall. So we are watching it over on Rumble. So you can go check it out over there. That's one word, the Combo Couch. Hook us up over there. We got about 50 people following. Got about 250 hanging on out, 225 right now on the YouTube. But YouTube doesn't allow us to say what we want to say, so we have to sometimes go over to other platforms, free speech platforms like Rockfin. Now we're rocking the Rockfin for the premium members, and if you want to watch it for free, of course, Rumble. But if you can afford $9.99 a month, guys, it's the best way to help us out. That's the way the platform is made. It's meant to be watching premium content, but we don't want to put anything behind a paywall. That's why we're going to have it for free. Always, everything on Rumble until they start censoring us. And who knows, they might start censoring us. Maybe they'll censor us on this subject, fam, because it's not Rumble friendly over here. There's going to be a lot of people over in Rumble who are going to be a little upset with us, fam. I don't care because we call balls and strikes, and despite showing zero proof, and I'm talking about Bolsonaro's freaking accusations, the complaint from the Bolsonaro campaign that was so sophomoric and little league and bullshit and just about narrative and rhetoric that the machines are outdated and they need to be changed. Coming from a person who's won 4 or 5 elections beforehand with the same system that has not been specific on any of the cheating, and then all the bullshit rhetoric out there, whether it be vote flipping or zeroed out Bolsonaro machines that could be caught in actual time. Okay. You're still pushing this bullshit rigged election system. And when you hear a lot of people tweet, when you see a lot of people make their getters or whatever information, it's still about the communist boogeyman coming, fam. Fam, is Lula a communist? Help us out over here.
Not even close. He's like a left of center guy.
So
I mean, he's not. Yeah, definitely not a communist. He's definitely pro-capitalist. I mean, he's just pro-worker. That's the thing. He focuses on a lot of the issue, like social safety nets for workers, which is why he won twice.
Yeah.
3 times
three
now,
times.
right?
This is the 3rd time. Yeah, he's won twice.
This is the
before.
3rd time. Yeah.
Proceeded over serious economic times. So let's start off with the narrative. We talked about this before. For anybody watching this show the first time, there might be some first-time watchers. The thing that's been really disingenuous and dishonest is the fact that they're trying to create a parallel from what happened with Bolsonaro and his popularity to Donald Trump and what happened.
And both sides are trying to do that,
Yes.
and it's wrong.
And it's terrible. And they're trying to compare what happened to Donald Trump in 2020 to what happened to Bolsonaro in 2022. Completely different. Not to mention even the aftermath is completely different, as all these rallies that they're showing out there with all these people, and there have been big rallies and people have been protesting, but a lot of times they keep using the same footage from the Independence Day parade and keep on trying to make it look like that's what's going on a regular basis. Don't want to talk about that. That was an independence parade in which Bolsonaro also made his campaign rally kind of combined with that. So it looked like this massive, crazy get out for Bolsonaro, in which they can now dupe the American public and going, how could this be? How could Bolsonaro lose? The people loved him. They supported him. And Lula was like Joe Biden. False. From the get-go, you've lied and you've created a false narrative. Lula was the 2-time president before now winning his 3rd term just now. He was a champion for the poor. I've said this before, and I'll say it again, and maybe I'm wrong, but the way I see it is Lula is no communist whatsoever. He is, however, a compromise between the communists and the capitalists, because he will allocate resources to what we've seen from the people we talk to, the poorest of the poor in the favelas who need the help. Also, the labor groups like the MST has 1.5 million strong inside their organization. Very critical of Bolsonaro with his agricultural, letting in big agricultural, property rights for small farming, the arming of these militias for them to go and kick people off their lands. There's a group and a bunch of people that are pro-Lula, regardless of all the other things that you might not like as an American, WEF, vaccines, mask, get it, but it's not your choice to make. It is theirs. And you need to understand why Bolsonaro lost, because what did Bolsonaro really do? He just presided over this big cultural war, this conservative Christian movement, while the economics of Brazil went in the toilet. Now, his people, whose supporters will say that it's not his fault, it happened during COVID. I'm not here to cast blame or yes or no. I'm just saying there's a reason. And we went there where you can see it's obvious. There's a large amount of people who wanted Bolsonaro out and Lula back in. And that's what we witnessed. Did we not, fam?
Yeah, we witnessed that. I mean, it was definitely a divided election. It definitely wasn't as easy as some on the left made it out like it was going to be, that Lula was just going to cruise through and win. In fact, we knew that there was likely going to be a second round. And we chose to go to the first round in spite of that, because of the fact that being in the first round was so important. And it was so important to actually be able to look at things and set the stage. And in the second round, of course, we had people there that were saying, that there wasn't much going on, beside the attempts to stop some of the transportation, which would have affected Lula, not Bolsonaro, by the way. So if anything, those were the attempts on that end. As far as the machinery, though, and this, we've talked about this so many times now, I'm just like, why? It's insane that this is happening again. But the allegations are that that they found something in the machines, but they are giving no specifics about the machines. And the machines are open source. Stop comparing them to the United States closed source black box voting system, where you don't know where your vote goes. You don't see it. There's no public counting. There's no ID. There's vote by mail. You can take a month to vote. Like, I mean, there's just so many different variations that both sides need to stop trying to make this comparison just based on the fact of the ideology is more in line. And it's really frustrating because we're telling you, if the election was invalid, we would have said something. We would have said, hey, look, there's a possibility here that he won because these numbers aren't coming out in a way that's statistically probable. But they're using things like, oh, well, Lula's results came later, so there was a dump. A dump of what? There's no ballots. What are you talking about? There's no dump. There's no ballots. How could there be a dump? And the machines, of course, are open source. So every single party member that of the candidates that were running, not just presidential, but of the other positions, literally could go and check and see, okay, this is how many we have. And that's why they did. They kept tallies and stuff, and they should have at least. We were able to quickly go see how many were in the voting location, the poll station, in each room. And we were able to do that. We did it with our friend Gloria, and Pasta went in there before and after. He made sure we were like running to make sure we were almost not allowed in. And this was a Bolsonaro area because they were like, why are these people so adamant, blah, blah, blah. But technically, anybody that wanted to look at the results once they were tabulated, and they were tabulated very quick in those areas because they had more people, more resources, was able to look at this and be like, okay, these are the things. And we've already shown the pictures. We've shown all of this. I mean, I don't know. And plus, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like a lot of the support for this idea that the elections in Brazil are rigged is coming from the United States.
We're going to get to that. Yeah.
Brazil itself. Well, Brazil, obviously Brazil is too, but I mean, the push for it and stuff is coming from the U.S.
Definitely. And we'll talk about that. There's a reason why I haven't been on Steve Bannon, and there's a reason why I haven't been on InfoWars or even Tucker, because Tucker didn't respond to my email as well. And I said I could like to provide some information, a different perspective on Brazil, somebody who's very frustrated with the team sports aspect, what's going on. I've mentioned this before, a lot of the biased leftist independent journalists out there being completely, ignorant to what Lula's done in his history and all that, where we've been very consistent, on both sides, and Fee said it perfectly a while ago. Pick your globalism. What type of globalism you want, ladies and gentlemen? You want the Bolsonaro letting in all these multinational corporations coming in, kicking out the small farmer? These are the labor groups. We went and talked to them. This is what they said, not us. This is not us giving you our opinion. This is when we sat down with these groups for hours and talked to them. We also sat down with the TSE, and the comparisons of what's going on in 2020 is so just wrong. I mean, Trump can tell you precisely, fam. Even at the ellipse before they went down to the Capitol, right? He talked about, let me tell you what happened in Wisconsin. Let me tell you what happened in Pennsylvania. Oh, this is what happened in Arizona. This is what happened in Nevada. And then Atlanta, and they changed the laws and they have all this. He was precise about every little thing that happened. We can tell you the moments when everything happened, right? And that's the whole thing. In Brazil, it's been very vague. It's been very, now they've come to the major complaint, fam, was, well, these machines are outdated. And all the machines that were made before 2020 have all these. They don't have individual machine serial numbers. They don't have this and that. So all those votes should be discounted from what came from these machines. So the TSE said, okay, so should we discount them from the first round? Well, what do you mean? Well, if they're not working good, they weren't working good in the first round. I guess you have to give up all your seats, amend your complaint, and we'll freaking go ahead and we'll take a look at it. They didn't amend their complaint because they're not going to give up all those seats they won in the first round, fam. This whole thing, it was so vague, and Bolsonaro has been nowhere. He's been nowhere. He barely even talked to the people. He comes out, gives a little wave here and there. He made one like a week after, right when he conceded, but he didn't concede. But the transition team was taken over, whatever you want to call it. He has done nothing. There are no parallels. And the most important thing is that these are the same rules they've been rocking in Brazil for quite some time, where it's counted, where it's cast. It's in front of you. You would catch fraud in real time. And if you didn't catch fraud in real time, then I feel sorry for you, because all those things that you complained about, they were not in the complaint. The vote, the dumping, which there's no dumping, but the ballot, the zeroed out machines, fam. Bolsonaro got zeroed out machines. in military areas. Well, why didn't you catch that in live time when they came in and they put the strip on the door, right? When they put it on the door in front of us, fam, right? Why didn't you catch it right there? It was right in front of you. You can say, I want that machine seized right there. Something's wrong. We got zeroed out Bolsonaro votes and we're a military town. We got it right now. You would have proof. You would have evidence. They got none of that. Zero proof. None of that was in the complaint. And yet they're still trying to keep it on, fam. Anything else to say before we get to this revolver at this article? Because what they're hoping, fam, is that the military steps in. And you got a lot of these people here in the States. And fam, I got a question for you. How come, and this is from Revolver, how come all these people are screaming about Brazil, fam, but nobody, fam, is screaming about Pakistan?
Yeah.
What's going on, fam?
Yeah, I mean that it's just it's ideologically based, right? It's just like it's team sports based. Oh, Bolsonaro is this Christian guy. Oh, he's like Trump. Oh, he's this. So we're going to support him. And look what Brazil's doing. We should do that too in the United States. Yes,
Yeah.
it's not just happening in Brazil. It's happening here in America too. Guys, completely different election system. It is happening in America. It is happening in America. I can't say that it's happening in Brazil. Brazil's election system was in some ways more advanced and cleaner than Colombia's.
Yeah.
But I liked Colombia's better because there was more of a paper trail, right? Brazil has the tally. You get a paper tally, but not for every single vote. I would like always a backing with a paper trail.
Yeah.
But open source. So we always said, well, we really don't just want electronic devices, but if you have an open source system, that definitely changes things a little bit, right? You still want some more paper backing, but having an open source system is really key. They have an open source system. So again, like it's just not the same thing. Stop trying to make it what it's not because you discredit yourself. You discredit the validity of the ineffectiveness in our argument saying that the elections in the United States aren't fair. And you also discredit what a fair election might look like in the United States.
Yeah.
Because I think that we could get something like what Brazil has. At the very least, I would take that over anything we have here in the States.
So I wanted to do this subject because obviously they were talking about, and if you didn't see, fam, let me just put it back up. I'm so sorry, ladies and gentlemen. It says in the article 142, Article 142, where the military is going to step in and take control. That's what they're hoping for. People are calling for, Brazilians are calling for that. America First people are calling for that. They want Brazil, the military, to step in and support Bolsonaro. And this doesn't say that they did. It says the Brazilian military stands with Bolsonaro, is prepared to invoke Article 142. Now, I heard rumors early that Lula went and talked to a lot of military personnel beforehand. So I don't believe this right here when it says this article that they're going to step in there. And I think they know damn well with the administration that's in the White House right now that they want Lula, that they're not going to stand back and let that happen. So, I mean, this is all just, bullshit and whatnot. I want to say this too as well. The other reason why I want to do this subject today is not just to talk about 142, fam, is I want people to stay on message. I've become a little bit frustrated over the last week or two because we're not staying focused. Nobody catches these people, right? The math catches them. All election has is math. There's math all over the place. The math will tell you that something is wrong. The math is something we should concentrate because the math will lead us to the solutions we need. So, for instance, when we talk about Arizona, Katie Hobbs, according to the math that came back, won 20% of the Republican vote. You have to talk about that. Well, how could she win 20% of the vote? Well, how about 2/3 of the ballots that were turned in? Of the 1.6 ballots that were turned in, 1.1 were mail-in ballots. 2.1 ballots were mailed out almost or some shit like that, 2 point something. So literally, they have like 1 million ballots just outstanding that never got turned in Nevada, in Arizona. So those are the things when you talk about that math, that all those outstanding ballots are out there, that people have to believe that 20% of the vote of the Republican vote went to Katie Hobbs. Well, how do we change that system of mail-in ballots? How do we get that change? How do we go to requested only, at least? You have to request the mail-in ballot because that would change everything up, turn everything upside down on its head. Remember, we already had wonky rules in place. The COVID and allowing those laws to still exist, even though they were implemented illegally in some situations because they didn't go through the state legislature. That's something we need to talk about. We have to pay attention. Fam, too many people, especially on the conservative side and the America First side, are concentrated on the boogeyman. They're concentrating on China, communism, and Soros, Zuckerberg, rather than the system itself. The fact is we shouldn't have a mass mail-out system.
Are you talking about Brazil or the United States?
United States. Sorry.
Yeah.
Wait. Brazil too. They still believe that that China, a lot of people, and I'm going to play a video from Bannon. Bannon talks about China having influence in Brazil. And yet they can't specifically tell us how it's, anybody I ask, specifically tell me how it was cheated. Now, anybody who was saying, oh, they the zeroed out, the vote flipping, now they can't say that anymore because that wasn't in the complaint. Now they're reduced to just Bolsonaro's freaking bullshit complaints now. So they can't specifically tell me anything.
Did you even see like Chinese people involved at all in the election process in Brazil?
No, I saw Xi Jinping scale down the wall in Brazil and Rio and fucking.
I mean, there weren't even there were delegations of people, but I didn't see a Chinese delegation.
Well,
I didn't even see. Yeah.
Fam, it's gotten to the point right now. It's not a populist movement. It's back to a conservative right wing neocon movement where we're going to justify getting involved in the point.
But that's the point. And I do think, and I'm glad you said that, because before you continue, anything now, if you have a bunch of political officials or people that have been involved in the U.S. government trying to stir up a regime change operation in Brazil, that's a coup. That's a coup. That's an attempted interventionist type of coup that you're trying to rile up. Do I think it's going to happen? No, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think that the real, I agree with Pasta. I don't think the military in Brazil really supports anything that this article is saying. Like, it's just not going to happen. I have a hard time believing that it's going to happen. But it seems to me that people in the United States are trying to push this coup under this, I don't know, it feels like a very zealous type of mission to prove like, oh, we can win here because we didn't win in the United States. It's like, how about we focus on our elections in the United States?
Exactly.
Literally. Like, why are you so worried about Brazil? Literally, it's a completely different country, completely different election system. Yes, it's a very divided country, has similar issues that plague some of the people as far as inflation, poverty, homelessness, and all of that. And you know, the guy that was in power, people weren't happy with him, so they got rid of him. And they have an election system that is far better than ours. So
I asked people, I said, which election system would you take, United States or Brazil? And if they say, well, neither, well, that's the same thing you told us when we had to vote for Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump or Joe Biden, which one do you want? Gun to my head? Okay, you too. You too. Tell me which one you would have, because they have mandatory. They clean the voting rules in Brazil. You got to be registered 5 months before the election. You have to show up at your designated location on that holiday with your ID. It takes just 5 to 10 minutes to vote, and then they count it where it's cast. So aside from that DRE machine, and fam, that's the thing. They'd have so much data from the first round. They would know exactly if anything was going on. They would catch it in real time. And they're trying to make these vague accusations about it. It's just getting crazy. I want to get to the video because I wanted to show you this, and I want you to see it for your own eyes. But let me just read this one part right here really quick so we can get you up to speed, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about, despite showing zero proof, the U.S. conservatives, the America First peoples, some of my friends, pushing Brazil rigged election when they have zero proof. Sometimes it seems like nothing ever happens, but this seems like it could be a big deal, fam. The background. The Brazilian people have flooded the streets in protest. And at the allegedly rigged and stolen election, truckers are blocking all highways. Farmers have blocked all ports from exporting agriculture. Bolsonaro has exhausted his legal options, with his election appeal being rejected by a corrupt opposition-appointed Chief Supreme Court Justice. Bolsonaro is now huddling with the military to plot his next move.
This seems like a description of a movie, like a Hollywood movie.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I wanted to. Why isn't this?
No, go ahead, play it. Is this
not let me? Yeah, but I'm gonna go over here. Sorry, family. Just give me 2 seconds to see if I can get this up. Okay, that'd be better. All right. Ma'am, don't you like
work on his hair?
You gotta like Bannon's hair though. Look at that.
I know. It's better than Trump's, but I mean, we could do a little bit with that hair. Come on, guys.
Steve Bannon, I'm here, Bubba. If you want to have me on, I'll have a nuanced conversation about Brazil. The biggest problem I have, fam, with this whole situation before I put this video is that I'm afraid they're going to cry wolf here. And I'm afraid they're going to make themselves look less credible when they have actual criticisms, valid criticisms of an election system in the United States, because they're just complaining. And you said that, but
that's the point, I think.
It is. It almost this is the stuff that makes me so suspicious about Donald Trump, because these are the crowds he rolls with. It's like, why are you doing that? You got to vote for Bolsonaro, fam, because he put you on the map. Like, who's telling you to say that shit? Go to Brazil, man. Fam's got.
And that's what people said too. Yeah. That's what some of the people that we spoke to said. They couldn't say why they wanted Bolsonaro. They said, oh, because he put Brazil on the map. They literally said that in Portuguese.
Well, people also said too, when I've been speaking to them lately, that this is a plan for the communists to take over. So you got people going out there, and it's all become the anti-communist shit, the bullshit. Alex Jones, who doesn't understand what's going on overseas. And I'm not here to advocate for communism. Fam could do that. But, like, no, you can do that. But I mean, this shit is just.
But I don't advocate for it. Like, when we're talking about new stuff, like, I advocate for it on my own time. Well, I talk to people about things. Most of my friends aren't communists. Most of my friends are nonpartisan.
And you're an anarcho-communist, which is not it's everything.
I don't know. I'm slowly leaving the anarcho part because they're annoying me. I've been telling you that.
Fam, don't let DC piss you off. Here we go.
Video.
All right, here we go.
Steve.
DC.
Oh.
The single biggest story about democracy, and the second biggest story is what's happening in Arizona and how we have to sort this out. The biggest, though, is in Brazil. Are we coming down to the climactic conclusion of this? Bolsonaro's put up that the thing was stolen. I guess the federal judge has already come back and said, you don't have the receipts, you don't have it. These rallies in the streets are big. Are the military going to step in here and get to the bottom of what happened in the election, or are just the truckers and everybody is just going to peter out, and Lula just rope-a-doped them, and eventually he's going to be installed as an illegitimate president by the CCP and his other handlers in Brazil, sir?
So after Christianity, the most important religion to Brazilians of every stripe is football, soccer. Brazil had their World Cup match and nobody left the streets. Everybody was still vociferously protesting. This is so much bigger, and you rightly say this is bigger than Bolsonaro. This is, and again, for clarity, Bolsonaro has an alleged fraud. Bolsonaro hasn't come out and said really anything except from after the final tabulation, when he gave a press conference 72 hours after, and he said, we're going to follow the Constitution, exercise your right to protest if you believe it is warranted. And he has allowed others, as he should. He is not giving them the rope to hang him with. And the party, and we've discussed this, the party of which he has aligned in his political career, they're a very powerful apparatus led by a guy named Valdemar da Neto. Valdemar da Neto was the one behind this audit of the tabulation, where they said, look, the machines from certain production runs are unauditable and look fishy, but you will not give us the TSE, the subsidiary electoral court to the Supreme Court, who administers and oversees the election, would not participate in the military audit or the demand for audit from the political party. They wouldn't give the machines. They wouldn't give the source code. They wouldn't give the detailed tabulation, drop by drop.
All right, fam, I gotta stop him really quick here, because now he's really he's muddying the waters, and he's fucking pretty essentially lying. Okay, because he was like, oh, they wouldn't give us the source code, they wouldn't do this stuff. All that stuff is made available, and you can have all the data as it comes out. It comes out, and they post it outside the wall. Plus, they have all this other data from other years. If you were serious and you have the data and you can see, because people sent me like, look at the data, look at the machine stuff. Okay. You could literally go, okay, so this is from Bolsonaro 5 years ago or 6 years ago when he ran for Congress, and this is his district right now with Lula. Look how it doesn't match up. This is from the first round here. This is from the second round. They showed none of that stuff. None of that stuff. You're going to sit here and tell me, while in the United States, to audit an election right now, to have any type of security or accountability, we have to chase our tails because we don't have any of the means necessary. They take these ballots off to another location in the United States and they count them in another room. They have mail-out ballots coming from God knows where, mailing them out to everywhere. This system is all high and tight. They have one area of concern, which is a DRE machine, which you touch, but all the results can come out right away. And you would know in real time as they're counting, like the Convo Couch did, with no money to go and look in a Bolsonaro area to see how it was open and closed. You can do this, and you can have the information, and you can have a smoking gun if they cheated. They didn't cheat. You have nothing. And now you're trying to lie. First of all, I don't know who this Polish-American freaking dude is. Is he in Brazil? Did he go to the TSC like we did and ask them all the questions? Because this is some made-for-TV bullshit here. You have access. The campaign has access to everything. You can compile your own data. Bolsonaro doesn't even need to go with the TSC to compile his own data. All the data is made public.
That's what these people, he says that they're not giving them the source code. The data is public. The data is public. What are you talking about? The data is public. And before that, even before the election and after, the parties each had access to the source code. That was like the second question Pasta asked. It was like when we were there. We asked directly about the source code. That's what you asked about.
If they had a zeroed out, and fam, we got to get that video up. We're gonna have to get that up because it's just driving me crazy. We have to show these people that we went there. If somebody hung up outside of a door, so here it is, got an election center. And the election center, they have about 20 rooms. Per 20 rooms is about 400 ballots per 400 people who can vote around average per each one. Up to 400 people. They average about 300 votes per room. And they got about 20 rooms in one location. They have about 4 workers per room. They have people checking in. It's 1, 2, 3 at the end of each one. And like we've showed before, they have to show the zeroed out machine. And then they have to show at the end of the day, the other machine. They have to have 5 copies of each one. And it shows you exactly what room they came from and what people voted there, right? They put on the door outside, zeroed out machine for Bolsonaro. Somebody would be taking a picture like we did, fam, and sending it off. Like, we have a zeroed out machine right here in a military location. We got him. They would have a smoking gun. They would leave fingerprints. You would be able to tell to not just the precinct, but the room in which you were getting cheated on. And they have none of that, fam. Plus, they have all this data and information from the first round. I would like them to explain to me where they got cheated in the first round from the second round and not the first round, in which they compiled many more votes. I would like them to explain that to me. Where did they get cheated? And in America, we can tell you to a T where it came from. Oh, there's actual ballots here. There's an actual dump. In Brazil, they don't have ballots. There is no dump. Well, why is Lula reporting his precincts reporting later? Maybe because they're in the favelas and they're not in the affluent areas like we saw in Bolsonaro's area, where they have much more help, a lot more people, and get done quickly and get those reports, those numbers reported quickly. And what did I say, fam? I got to point this out as well. We were in a strong Bolsonaro location. Lula was still getting a decent amount of votes. And I said to you, fam, with Lula getting this many votes in these areas, it's going to be very hard for Bolsonaro to beat him because he's getting this many votes in a Bolsonaro affluent district.
Yeah. I don't know if you're going to continue, but before you continue,
I got to continue. Got more bullshit.
I have to say on Bannon's opening remarks, one, he was inaccurate about, at least this guy called him out on it. Bolsonaro hasn't said anything. He hasn't done anything. He's not leading the troops here. He's been quiet and silent. He hasn't done anything. So he was wrong. He was literally, what he was saying was infactual. And then the other thing he lied about right off the bat with no proof, Lula's handlers in the CCP. Can you please show me evidence that Lula has handlers in the CCP? Yes, Lula has attended the World Economic Forum, just like Bolsonaro has. Yes, he has spoken there, just like Bolsonaro has. Yes, Lula has done some foreign policy things like related to Haiti that we've talked about here that were absolutely a stain on his record. But like CCP, is there a way somebody can provide proof that he's attached to the CCP. I mean, when you say things like that right off the bat, I just have a hard time lending credibility to not just what you're saying, but the kind of guests you're going to bring on. So it's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. And the CCP has nothing to do with Brazil's politics, dude. Brazil, Lula is a far cry from a communist, like literally. And the people who call themselves communists told me that. It's the same thing with Petro. Petro was never a communist, but they were calling him a communist. It's ridiculous. Anyway, you can continue.
All right, I'm gonna play a little bit more that's gonna mute us up, guys. Do us a favor. Hit the like button, hit the share button. Go on over to Rumble if you want to watch for free. If you're a premium member, watch on Rockfin. We're talking about what's going on in Brazil. They're trying to strike up Article 142. They want to make you believe that the military is going to go in and back Bolsonaro because it was such a fraudulent elections. Fam, am I inaccurate to say that if they did switch this election, because people have been like, he's going to go on and say, where are the counter protests? I want you to pay attention to that. I'm going to answer the question before he mentions it. If that happened, the people from the favelas will be flooding into the street the opposite way. It's a divided country. And if you want to see counter protest, just watch what happens if you try to pull the rug underneath this election. They're going to come down from the streets, out of the favelas and into the streets. Don't get it twisted to think that this guy has no support. But this is what this schmuck continues to say, because this is the narrative they're pushing, fam.
Drop. In fact, they even took it off the website as forensic auditors, like the guys I've been working with internationally, to analyze. Started analyzing the public data. They took it off for 3 days to scrub it and then put it back on. So the whole society knows that something is rotten here. And what's interesting is, if you have all this support for Lula, 50, 51%, 52%, maybe it's 47%, where are his supporters, right? Leftist activists with their hammers and sickles and Marxist flags and big 5-pointed stars, they usually are pretty vociferous and are out there marching. There's none of that. There are no counter protests. There's nobody there. This whole thing has been an information op to set up this ballot dump steal mechanism that they've created with the.
Sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I can't help but laugh.
Is there ballots, fam? Is there ballots?
Yeah, it's a ballot dump with no ballots. Jesus Christ. This, and it is fucks. You know why I get mad? Because then when we talk about ballot dumps, when we talk about statistically impossible or statistically significant and chain of custody and all these things that we talk about that we know and we tell our audience, it just discredits everything we do now. Everything we do is put into question because he's using some of the same arguments in the wrong way, right? So that's why it gets me so irritated, because you can't say that there's ballot dumps when there's no fucking ballots, dude. Like, there's no ballots to dump. There's no, oh, they voted by mail, so we're still waiting on the ballot to get here, and there's going to be a tub of ballots that we suddenly find.
Yeah.
All the votes have been accounted for.
There's no vote centers. You can't just go vote wherever you want. You got to go vote at your designated spots. They know who's voting.
And not only at your designated spot, it's this designated room.
Boom.
The room. They won't even allow you to change that.
Fam, if Bolsonaro, he's claiming that the TSE, which is the Electoral Council, took the data down offline and scrubbed it for 3 days and put it back up. Why wasn't that in the complaint? Why wasn't there pictures and that shown in the complaint? Why wasn't that in your complaint? If there's zeroed out Bolsonaro machines, why isn't that your complaint? And you would know which room it was in. Why isn't that in your complaint? And he also said, "Well, where are these counter protests? They won the election, numbnuts. They're not. They ain't got nothing to." I'm sorry,
I can answer his question. Why aren't they out there protesting? First of all, the vast majority of people in Brazil are not communists. Okay, the left in Brazil is like, I mean, they're just not. They're the left. The left in Brazil is probably close to the left in the United States a little bit. So there's more organized movements than we have anywhere on the left. Like there's the liberals and there's all, but there's not, like, the vast majority of Brazil. Brazil is a more conservative country. Brazil is a country that is Christian. Brazil is a country that rejects communism. It is not ready for that. That's not what Brazilians want. Brazilians don't want communism. You can talk to our friend Camilla about that, who has ad nauseum said even the establishment of Brazil's was like, we can't work with Bolsonaro because we're losing money. Like this is why he won. So where are all those people? Well, those people are like, don't think that anything's going to happen. Anything's going to come out of this. They, Lula won. Now they're like, okay, Lula won. Moving on. Like that's why they're not protesting. Why the hell would they protest? They don't see that anything is happening. So actually, that's more of a discrediting of this whole supposed movement to overturn this election against Bolsonaristas, because it more so shows, if it was a legitimate concern that they had that the Bolsonaristas were going to overturn the election, they would be out in the streets. They would. Not the liberals and the milquetoast people, the vast majority of people that voted for Lula, but there would be more people that were like, okay, no, like the people that are, in economic need, that are in the streets, the favela people, all these people, they would be out in the streets. Why? Well, because they're more organized and they have more organized movements like the MST and stuff that we don't have in the United States. Like we have nothing. It would be like the equivalent of a Black Panther Party sort of thing that they have there. We don't have that. So that's why they're not out there, because they don't see this as a threat. If they saw it as a legitimate threat, they would be out in the streets protesting. So
they'd come down from the favelas and fill the streets. They would come down from the favelas and fill the streets. And that's all I got to say. I want to watch a little bit more of this, fam, and then we'll get on. But please, well, I think this is entertaining. We should be entertained. Let's take a look at Matthew Tireman, Polish-American investigative journalist. Not sure if he's in Brazil, but telling the QAnon tagline of sorts of, China. Fam, I'm in, Bannon. China.
Machines with the right people in the court that are all Lula, Dilma, and Temer's.
Hold it. Slow down, because they had protesters in Mexico City at Mexico City.
There are no counter protests. There's nobody there. This whole thing has been an information op to set up this ballot dump steal mechanism that they've created with the machines, with the right people in the court that are all Lula, Dilma, and Temer's.
Hold it. Slow down, because they had protesters in Mexico City at Mexico City CPAC when I spoke, Eduardo Pasovic. They had 1,000 protesters there with hammer and sickle. You brought up something that the dog didn't bark. These guys are the experts in the world, from Antifa to all of them, getting people in the streets. It's crickets on their side. Why is that?
In Brazil, you're not seeing it. You've got the AstroTurf gang in Mexico City. But in New York, where you have Brazilian protesters wearing, the yellow, blue, and green, the Brazil flag, going after the judges who were in that event we discussed in New York, which is insane, that they went to talk, the communist judges went to talk about how they saved Brazilian democracy. And you had thousands in Times Square praying, protesting. You had them on 44th Street outside the Harvard Club. And they have to go to Mexico City to find Mexican AstroTurf protesters, and they're holding with Antifa their hammer and sickles and their Soviet flags and pictures of Lula. I mean, it's like, methinks the lady doth protest too much. They're admitting that Lula is a hardcore communist working with global sort of Marxist proletariat of the world, unite and march, blah, blah, blah. In Brazil, they're absent. They're not there. There are no counter protests. There's no skirmishes. The military just said, if you're going to protest around the barracks. That's another heads up, another Q, C-U-E, not Q for some of our wackier followers, not the letter Q, but a Q to go in front of the barracks and make that your sort of locus.
Ma'am, that's your cue.
I'm sorry. I'm dying right now.
You're just,
that's my
cue.
I'm going.
And after him, I'm sure Jack Posobiec got on there and started saying some shit too as well. I am positive with his BS too as well. I mean, wow. Holy cow. I mean, fam, did you hear all that bullshit? Why would they protest? Why would they? And here's the thing. I think once again, people like Bannon, people like Alex Jones, and this is why I really love people like Jason Burmis and Mel K. First of all, Mel comes from a more conservative point of view, but she understands what's in front of her and she can talk about it. She can understand that this form of collectivism, when people go into these countries, when the empire's in these countries, the NED gets the United States government to put their Buddha in their neck They're not fighting because they want to believe in this hardcore ideology of communism or Marxism. Yeah, they look into it and they learn it, but they want their national sovereignty. They want the United States off their neck, and they want their workers to have a decent standard of living. That they don't want all these corporations coming in and raping everything. That's the true essence of their Marxism, fam. Am I lying, or am I telling the truth here?
No, you're telling the truth. I mean, again, Lula's not even close to being a communist. He's criticized by communists. He is a candidate that they are accepting. Some, very few. There's very few. I mean, stronger than it is here, but there's very few actual communists in Brazil. It's not the one of the countries that's like, it's a capitalist country. It's a country that wants more of a social. I'm not even barely right. Lula would be like a social democrat. He's not anywhere. It's just laughable that they're saying what he is. If he was that, I wouldn't be criticizing him on all the things he isn't. And this idea, which is really funny because they act like, I think they think like everybody to the left of like a libertarian is a communist. And just like, you know, the left thinks that everybody to the right of Bernie Sanders is a fascist. Like the left thinks that everybody to the right of Bernie Sanders is a fascist. The right thinks that everybody to the right of some libertarian is a like a communist, like a hardcore communist. It's just not the case. It's just you're completely just ignoring the differences here. You know, AOC, neoliberal. If that's your idea of Marxism, well, some of us want no part of that. So it's just funny because in these countries in Latin America, a lot of these so-called Marxists are far more conservative on social issues. A lot of them are Christian. A lot of them, we met some that are anti-vaccine that were for Lula because of the privatization of Bolsonaro, that talked about, literally spoke to us about the World Economic Forum. We had that conversation, literally.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong,
literally.
Yeah, of M201 and then it's like, yeah, like, you know, when the camera was off, it's like, I think this person is more like aligned with you guys. Have you heard about Event 201? And we were like, have we? And we had a nice conversation from there. Listen, that was from the people in the favelas, but you know, I mean, they do have their cultural war shit, liberty people who are just like Bernie Sanders, people, progressives. I'm not going to deny that. When I spoke to them, I said, well, why do you believe in mandates? And do you understand what a mandate is? Well, they believe in science. They had the same kind of thing. They politicized it because they wanted to use it as a way of going after Bolsonaro. And this is something I don't blame Bolsonaro for. I don't blame him for what happened during COVID. You know, Big Pharma has their grasp on Brazil too as well. And, you know, they politicize that too as well, the same way they politicized it against Donald Trump. But it's a nuanced situation. It's very, very different. And I still can't put my finger on, other than a culture war battle or a conservative Christian movement, why people will vote for Bolsonaro. I mean, Lula resided over some booming economic times, including taking some of the most impoverished out of poverty. And they went right back under poverty under Bolsonaro. The homeless problem in Sao Paulo is no joke, guys. It's really, really, really bad. I'm going to play the last part of this, fam, and then we'll get on to the next section.
Yeah.
Of protesting, the military is going to be taking action. Valdemar Doneto, going back to this key point, unleashed this paper and this petition to the court, which the court immediately turned around and said, you don't have it. Give us the first round as well. Oh, you don't have that within 24 hours. We're fining you 22 million reais, so about $4.5 million. And we're now putting the head of the political party, Valdemar Doneto, on our criminal target list on the fake news investigation, which.
Fam, did you see that gloss over? Did you see that gloss over? You don't have it. You don't have the receipts. Well, give us the first round too. No, let's just move on. What do you mean? You said those machines are invalidated, so they're invalidated for the first round, correct?
Right.
No, I mean, we don't want to. He just tried to gloss over that shit like it's nothing. There hasn't been a decent argument. Anybody has not come to the table, and all those other people who are avoiding debate with me are just chicken shit, or avoiding debate with Fee are just chicken shit. We understand what's going on. We got you. Stop crying wolf. Stop trying to make this Brazil thing an American thing. And if you, in fact, do this, you are going to make yourself look like the boy who cried wolf, and you are not going to be taken serious when there are serious election claims here at home.
Yeah.
Bannon,
Yeah, that should be the focus.
irresponsible.
It is irresponsible. I mean, obviously, I'm for free speech. I'm not for censoring this. It's actually quite entertaining, but it does have to be opposed, right? The only solution is more speech. At least in the United States, I think we need as much speech as we can get because we're only getting really certain narratives here.
And fam,
yeah, it's hard to wade through the bullshit on both sides of the aisle, really.
It is. It sucks being us sometimes. It really does. And I wanted to bring this one up because this is an ex-libertarian, Martha Bueno. Around the world, people are rising up against brutal dictatorships and authoritarian regimes. Tell me which one of these countries we haven't messed with their government or haven't heard the NED or any NGO hasn't gone in there and messed with these. I swear to God, the movement sometimes from the conservatives or the American First people trying to finger communism is the big fucking thing. It really just drives me crazy, man. Why isn't this on the front page of the news? Could it be that those in power want the masses to see what we are actually moving forward towards? Moving forward, freedom. And they're talking about, look at the countries she names: Cuba, China, Iran, Brazil, Colombia, Nicaragua, etc. And all trying to bank off what's going on in China, fam. Another one, not Zach. Jack Prosobic, another one, putting up all these
I have it
going on in China. Well, we'll get to it too as well. I mean, just listen, Jack Prosobic and Jackson Hinkle got into it, so maybe there's a little debate over there for those two. I'd like to see that, but
I wouldn't. But yeah, but I think we could do without that. But the reality is, there's the left and the right are both playing this game in the United States. And what I mean by the left, I don't mean like the real left. And I just don't consider myself part of that left, but they're the ones that are playing this sort of culture war game with the right, back and forth, back and forth. It's a gigantic distraction.
And here it is, fam. Here's what we talked about. Trump aides Bannon. Miller advising the Bolsonaro on his next steps. So here it is. We know where it's coming from, fam. This is from, I don't know, I don't know why they've invested so much. And Bolsonaro's not going to give him the rope to hang himself on, is what the dude said. It's like, no, he's got nothing to say. That's why he's keeping quiet. He's got nothing to say. You got to keep this rhetoric and this narrative going on for quite some time. Well, you got nothing. You got nothing. You have zero proof. You see it there? Zero proof. Show election integrity activists like ourselves how the election was cheated. You could have so much data from all the elections before that, fam. You could pinpoint exactly where this is coming from. They can't do it because they don't have it, fam. They got nothing. Nada.
All righty. Did you want to read anything from that?
I just want to say, while tens of thousands of supporters of President Jair Bolsonaro camp outside military facilities across Brazil to protest his election loss, members of Bolsonaro's inner circle are meeting with advisors to former President Donald Trump to discuss the next step. Brazilian Congressman Eduardo Bolsonaro, the president's son, has visited Florida since the October 30th vote, meeting Trump at Mar-a-Lago and strategizing with other political allies by phone. He spoke with former Trump strategist Stephen K. Bannon, who was in Arizona assisting the campaign of GOP gubernatorial candidate Kari Lake about the power of the pro-Bolsonaro protests and potential challenges to the Brazilian election results, Bannon said. He launched in South Florida with former Trump campaign spokesperson Jason Miller, now CEO of the social media company Getter, and discussed online censorship and free speech, Miller said. Neither Trump nor Edward Bolsonaro responded to requests for comments.
So here's what I think this is about. I think this is about discrediting any legitimate concerns in elections that we have here in the United States. And I think that's what this is really about, because you can't be a smart, understand elections, and align yourself with this bullshit that they're trying to do in Brazil. And by aligning themselves with Steve Bannon, um, Steve Bannon aligning himself with Brazil and trying to advise them, even though another president has been elected, another candidate has been elected. Not only are they pushing like this sort of like interventionist sort of thing, but they're also discrediting any sort of real criticism that we have of the elections in the United States, because now they're going to say, oh, so you agree with Steve Bannon, you agree with crazy, oh, and Trump's doing this, Trump's trying to steal, so you think Brazil's elections were unfair? No, I don't. Oh, but why do you agree then with Steve Bannon and Trump? They say that the US elections are just like Brazil's elections and both were unfair. So then people like us who actually have real valid criticism of US elections and of elections in general, and have visited multiple countries with multiple elections, countries that have been condemned by the right, like Nicaragua, where they say that their elections were unfair. How come Nicaragua's elections were unfair? They have the best election system I've seen thus far. Others claim Venezuela has the best one. Oh, but though it was the machines from Hugo Chavez that actually helped steal the 2020 election. You see how this makes it very difficult? So it makes it so difficult that when we actually criticize US elections from a standpoint of, oh my God, US elections are completely unfair, we don't have a chain of custody, there's no way to verify them, there's black box voting, closed source, like all this stuff that we say. And on top of that, you have all the other problems of long lines, it takes you an hour to vote, whatever, all these things, the old voter rolls, vote by mail, ballot harvesting, all these things. They're like, oh, so you agree with right wingers, you agree with Republicans, you think that Brazil's election? No. So it makes it so hard for us to do our job or to even just present actual information, not riddled with your ideology at hand, that I genuinely believe this is just done on purpose. I just don't see how it's not at this point. You're being so ridiculous by pushing this bullshit that it discredits everything else that is actually valid. And I'm not saying it's everybody, but I am saying I think there's some mechanisms behind the scenes that are definitely trying to discredit, like make you a loony for questioning elections in the United States.
Yeah.
And tying it to ridiculous assertions like that in Brazil, or talking about the same thing. It happened with they were saying the same thing about Colombia, that the election was favored for Petro, that Petro won the election because it was stolen. They were saying the same thing about Nicaragua's elections, that he jailed his opponents. The right was saying that those elections were invalid, right? So it's just this thing where it makes it so difficult for us to do what we're supposed to do.
Yeah. I mean, fam, I think we should do, let's go into the Chinese section next, and we'll double back around to the other one, because I think it's just so important, since we're talking about Brazil and this whole rhetoric that the America First crowd, Bannon, Alex Jones, fam, we got to stop communism. We got to stop it in its track, because that's what it's all about. The fight is about communism. We have to stop the communists where they're at. So that's what the problem is. So I'm going to get all my guys out there to talk about communism. I'm not going to talk to legitimate people who want the elections, because they don't have the rhetoric I want. We want this rhetoric here. So talk about China. That's what's going to happen. Bam. China.
The frogs and China.
The China frogs gay in Beijing, fam.
Yes. The China frogs.
Okay, fam. So, all right.
So
there's been a blast. And if you go to Jack Posobiec's Twitter and some other people like him, there has been an overload of what's going on in China right now. So, I mean, it kind of seems odd to me that a lot of this stuff is being talked about at the same time, when in Brazil and China doing this, and the WEF and China doing that in China, they're really trying to get rid of Xi Jinping and all these other people, fam. I mean, that's what they're saying now, no?
No, they're not. I mean, that's what they're saying, but I just haven't seen, again, evidence of this. I've seen more evidence of Western-funded media trying to stir up a color revolution, but failing miserably, because there were counter-protesters en masse. Because in China, whether you agree with China or not, would I live in China? No, I would like to visit China. That's one of the things I intend on doing. But whether you like China or not, the people there have a completely different concept of how they view their government, how they view their life, and how they view the way they think it. It's not the way you and I think. And it's definitely not the way people in the United States think. So this is from Brian Berlatic. UK Prime Minister's claiming a BBC journalist was arrested in Shanghai, China. Yet it was clear by observing Telegram groups before and during the protests that journalists for foreign orgs were organizing the mobs. So there was foreign journalists there that were somehow organizing these mobs. And of course, the BBC world journalist was arrested reportedly. And then he talked about how the BBC has also been caught engaging in covert influence operations under the guise of journalism. Vanessa Beeley is one of these people that they've targeted regarding Syria and the chemical attacks. We've spoken with her about this. And this is, of course, from Gray Zone. And they this is an article that he cites as something you can look at for more evidence of this. And this was put out last year of February. And they talked about how, they've been using these programs to weaken Russia, which, by the way, was also in the RAND document, where they talked about how they were going to use various mechanisms to weaken Russia. It was the 2019 RAND document, RAND Corporation, if you want to look it up. And now they put an editor's note saying, well, some people are making up conspiracy theories about this, so just be careful, blah, blah, blah. And then he talked about the US and UK involvement all throughout the 20th and 21st century, pushing regime change worldwide. The BBC, again, also helping out. So, that's one analysis of, okay, so there's been a lot of talk about China this and China that. However, there is a lot. There's clear foreign journalists, foreign interventions, and there's counter protests that are actually pushing back against this these allegations that are happening as well. And I have a couple of videos and a couple of pictures. But one of these that I want to show, fam, is the next one by USA Basel Lover. And he says, to everyone telling you this is an anti-communist uprising, show them this. And it's a picture, and you can see, okay, so what's going on, in case it's not clear, right? You see this picture. What's going on is there are some protesters in Shanghai right now. They're protesting whatever they're protesting. The thing that they were shouting during these times was, we don't want communism, blah, blah, blah. But there's counter protesters, and there's more of the counter protesters. And look who's there. Look who's in the picture right there. Do you see him?
Mao.
You know who that is?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's Mao. So this isn't just, oh, there's a big crowd of people. Look, and they're looking to free themselves. They want freedom. This is like, there is like two groups of people, and there literally are counter protesters and protesters about of this situation. Why? Because this is a precarious situation, because there's funding, there's NEDs. Shanghai is another area that the US has long been looking at. Okay, Hong Kong and Shanghai, the two areas. This is nothing new. So there are people there saw what happened in Hong Kong, and they're saying, oh my God, this is happening again, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
Well, I'm just going to be pulling up in a second. I'm going to look for some stuff to show you that the Hong Kong Democracy and Freedom Act, right, which was all anti-Beijing, was supported by the NED. All the people on the NED were on the advisory board for that bill. So to show you, we have the NED once again messing around in Hong Kong, messing around in China. Now they've been thrown out of Hong Kong, but they're there, fam, and they want revolution over there. They want a Western-friendly government, and this is what they have to deal with on a regular basis. And the fact is that people like Posobiec and Bannon and all these other people, they just start throwing these accusations out there without even being nuanced about the whole situation. And, we don't have to, once again, I'm not a panda bear. I don't like everything and love everything that China does, right? I'm not going to support them no matter what. I don't like QR codes for human beings. I don't have a good scoop of what's going on because I'm not there. None of these people go there or talk to anybody from there. And these are the people that they're kind of going off and saying that they're the anti-war one, that they're the peaceful one. I guarantee you, fan, if the money that was spent in Ukraine was spent in Taiwan, these fucking people would be okay with it. They wouldn't be complaining the way they're complaining now.
Yeah.
I guarantee it. The majority of them would be there on that shit. Guarantee
It's
it.
true. It's true. So Angelo is in Hong Kong. He's in Hong Kong right now, actually. And he posted this. He said, China protests, manipulation already being exposed. People are already waking up and realizing who is pulling the strings. Agents, journalists running Telegram groups and giving orders from CNN, New York Times. I don't know. Reuters, I don't know, RFA is Exchange and Telegram channel. So you could, if you click on it, you can see it's obviously not in our language, but you can see the tags, right? BBC, you can see CNN tagged right there, and they're exchanging messages in these Telegram channels. It's not some conspiracy. This has happened many times before, where you have these journalists that go there to create stories, not to report on stories, but to create certain narratives. It's happened in Ukraine, as we've seen, and this is nothing new. Why do these people pick and choose? You have people like Jack Posobiec that have been right on Ukraine, right? Like that are like, okay, you know, the liberals are lying. Is it because they actually are anti-war against Russia, or is it because the liberals are pro-war on Russia, so they have to be anti-war? You know what I mean? Is it like, because to me, if you're not consistent across the board, then you're playing team sports. And I think the inconsistency that I see in a lot of people is really what's just hard to trust, right? And like I said, Angelo often talks a lot about China because he literally lives there. And I have a few of his tweets. Did you want to show something? Because if not, I have the other one.
I want to show this here because you mentioned Jack Posobiec, and this guy, you know what I'm saying? Once again, fam, you met Jack Posobiec before. I met him one time at Defeat the Mandates in DC. But let's take a look, because he's saying, I didn't say anything about war. And if you go through his whole freaking thing, I can't understand the obsession. Like, the party of individual responsibility doesn't want to be responsible for their foreign policy decisions of the empire. They want to sit there and make it look like China is pulling the strings. Or at very best, they want to make it look like the oligarchs are trying to make us look like China. But still, at the end of the day, they're pointing to the Chinese government. Look at this, what he says right here. This is a spiritual wall. Take down the CCP.
He retweeted that.
He retweeted it. Take down the CCP. Free China. And then his whole thing is about all these Chinese protests, I just, fam, I don't know what the crazy, he said it right there. What's that say?
Yeah.
What does that
Take down
say?
the CCP. Okay, so you're complaining about U.S. intervention in Ukraine. You're complaining about us giving weapons to Nazis and using it against Russia, but somehow using it against China, using it against China, Russia's ally, is okay. Just because you think, you see, this is what I mean when I don't agree. This is why I don't agree with people who say that Republicans are less hawkish, that we would be at a different war then. Because at the end of the day, this is their Russia. This is the rights Russia. China is the rights Russia.
Yes, it is.
Okay. China is the rights Russia, and then that is the reality. That's I mean, I'm sorry, you just can't play team sports. You can't demand no intervention on one and then demand one here because you hate communism. Like, it's not you have zero jurisdiction on China and what they do. And that applies to everything.
Yeah.
And
I
think
the obsession with that guy, the obsession with Bannon, the obsession with these people that China is like, no matter what, they try to make it about China. You know, I loved having Naomi Wolf come on the show when she talking stuff, but when she said that Bill Gates was an extension of China, I almost fell out of my seat. Thank God for Dr. McCullough coming on here and saying, no, this is an American problem. This goes back to American intelligence. Steve tried to explain how this goes back to MI6 and how we took the Nazis and Operation Paperclip, that we've been doing all this bullshit. We absorbed all the Nazi scientists so we can use all their biological weapons and whatnot, not the CCP. And here is the Gray Zone article, fam, that I pulled up about Hong Kong's opposition unites with Washington hardliners to preserve the U.S.'s own political and economic interest. And pretty much what they did, fam, is that they signed on, and you're talking about Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, along with every other conservative that hates China, signed on for this Human Decency Act over here, right? And there it is. Look at Joshua Wong meeting with Marco Rubio. Joshua Wong went on Ashton Ratanzi and got his ass handed to him because he was trying to push a color revolution. You know, there was also Azov battalion members that were down in freaking Hong Kong. Azov battalion members there to stir shit up. We have always had the NED and NGOs trying to overturn these people, all these kids over here, all these people, all these color revolutionaries were supported by the NED and American Western money. How the hell can you say it's China's fault? How the hell? And there they are.
It's the same thing. They're trying to do the same thing in Shanghai as they are in Hong Kong. And it's very obvious because, you know why? Because they've done it before and it follows the same exact pattern. The same exact pattern. And you have the same exact people saying, oh, we need to protect China. This is where the neocons and the neoliberals make love when it comes to China. When it comes to China, and oftentimes when it comes to Russia, they just each pick their battles. And at the end of the day, by the way, and we're going to talk about Jack, they're going to pick and choose depending on which war they're going to support, depending on their ideology. And believe you me, you're going to see a lot of Republicans that were saying no more war with Ukraine. Sorry, no more war with Ukraine and no more money to Ukraine. Give money to China. Say they want to invade China, help save free China, and throw money towards these institutions in Taiwan and Shanghai. That's what's going to happen. And, you know, another thing that I want to point out is these foreigners who were somehow there, they were protesting, right? And there's this tweet by Arnaud Bertrand, okay? And he says, never join a protest as a foreigner in China. It's beyond stupid. I've seen a few protests in all my years, always steered very well clear. Protesters might not like it as it can make their movement appear not genuine, and you'll, of course, stand out to authorities, not your fight. Foreigner was arrested in Shanghai for protesting and violence. Okay. So first of all, what the hell is a foreigner doing protesting in China? Again, this kind of reminds me of the AstroTurf protesters that were at the BLM stuff trying to stir things up. Literally, what the hell are you doing there? This is like, this doesn't concern you. Look, how does that not scream of just like
color revolution?
It's like, come on, what is this guy doing? Who's paying him? Like, why is he there? Why is this white guy there? This is not like, again, like it's just ridiculous. It just proves my point further. And Angelo again, and this is the last one I have. If you have more, please show. He said this is important because the COVID situation is always addressed, right? It's always the question. Well, what about COVID, Fiorella? We've had Matt Aaron on here before. And I want to get his wife on the show because I know her book came out on secret societies, but he talks about China, like explains like why China is, why the whole COVID situation in China differs. China has, in his opinion, right, there's different, obviously it's not just one entity, but China has always been afraid of a bioweapon being used against them, right? So they're more willing, they have a different mentality, etc. But this is what Angela said. If you wonder why China is still doing zero COVID, high probability it is getting ready for possible biowarfare. This is a really big fear of China. We don't really fear that. Only certain pockets of us, but in China, this is what they fear. For average Joe, is it bad? It is bad for individual freedoms, etc. If you dig deeper, China is getting ready for the next war, and it could get very, very ugly. And he quote tweeted the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which talked today a little bit more about the papers discovered in the Ukrainian biolabs that showed evidence of biological weapon components being produced in very close proximity to the Russian border. Pasta and I have covered some of this before, and they did a whole pathogen mapping. They studied the possibility of spreading pathogens. They several studies on African swine fever.
Fam, remember in the beginning,
Monitor-
I was like, I don't know if we should go with this story just yet, fam. I don't know if it's confirmed, you know. And then all of a sudden, like 2 days later, it was like, boom, boom. They were just backpedaling.
Yeah.
Here's Victoria Nuland. I'm like, oh shit,
Yeah.
fam. We were like, you know. And then all of a sudden, the Pentagon had to come out with a fucking whole statement going, yeah, we backed all these biological research facilities. But fam, if they are turned into weapons facilities, that's classic Russian behavior over there, says Anthony Blinken.
Well, you're talking about things. Look, the swine flu, right? You're talking about virus in wild pigs, waterborne pathogens, the transfer of microbial stains and biomaterials to other countries. The CDC is involved in that. Conducting research on military personnel in Ukraine and the mentally ill, concealing joint U.S.-Ukrainian military biological activities. Okay, wait a minute. The mentally ill. Guys, this is eugenics. And these are the experiments that were being run by Russia has documents. The Russians don't, when it comes to documentation, they really, really keep a close tab on it. They wouldn't be putting this out there if they didn't have it.
And fam, let me say something. When we did this story, that's when I can openly saying this is eugenics. After we did this story, when you brought that graph that one day, and I had the Pentagon paper saying, okay, you know, they have all the money and all the freaking receipts to it. Receipts, like actual accusations. Hey, Brazil, receipts showing proof of Fugazi behavior. Receipts. But that's what I openly said. And I know a lot of people don't like it when I say it. And I know there's a lot of people who took the jab themselves. And when I say this is the eugenics program, that's it. They're showing you what it is. What did Hillary Clinton say, fam? When people tell you the truth, tell you who they are, believe them. My mama used to tell me that.
Oh, but the vaccines are safe and effective, Pasta.
They are safe and effective, fam. And I don't want to
according
ever
to the
hear
CDC.
Fam. And just so we understand, while we're on this whole China situation right now, too, as well, let's not forget this. What the hell are Ukrainian fascists doing in the Hong Kong protest? But go ahead, Jack Posobiec. Put up videos of China doing this and China protesting and China this.
Can we?
I can put it up. You want me to go get him?
Where's his? I thought I put it in there. I must have forgot to put it in there.
I think you got it. You did put it in there. He's got his whole thread, but I'll go there real quick. He's got his whole fucking thread.
Well, I said something about
which one?
Because it's important. It's just his tweet. This is what he said. Hold on. I'll pull it up right now. I will pull it up in 1 second. There it is.
Okay. And now let me exit out. You know how
okay,
you
this is what
screen?
Yes. Right before Commie Heaven.
You want to pull it up?
No. It's right there. I put it in there.
Right here. Okay. Fam, I'm going to show you how to pull up those tweets. But I just want to mention that, you know, there are Ukrainian fascists who were once again supported by the West, that they were in Hong Kong with the protests causing problems because they were pushing back against Beijing. And they were there and they got fingered. And this is when Vice was allowed to talk about Nazis, but Vice is not allowed to talk about Nazis anymore. So how do you sit there, Jack Posobiec, say all this craziness when you see that there are receipts, actual financial ties between the United States government with these NGOs like the NED to protest that go back and push against governments? They've been doing it for quite some time. I really wish the party of individual responsibility would take some responsibility and not just blame China for everything, fam. For everything. It gets ridiculous at some point.
Okay. So
this is what he
said.
Like
I said, right? This is what he said. Biden can't speak out against the CCP crackdowns because they own him. Imagine the blackmail they have on his family, given what we already have seen on the laptop. So Biden is owned, right? Is owned by the CCP. The CCP.
Well, what do you
have
say
you seen the way?
Fam? What do you say, fam, to those people that say, "Well, we see all these monies. He's a compromised candidate and stuff like that"? What do you say to all those people who are saying, "Look what happened with Eric Swalwell with Fang Fang. Look at all these people who have all this money invested in China. They're all Democrats." What do you say to them?
The American economy and the Chinese economy are intertwined. This is why the United States and China really, especially the United States, we depend so much on China for everything we import. This is why it was such a big deal. And this is that the United States didn't respect China's lines, right? We talk about Pelosi going into Taiwan with a delegation and then other delegations coming after that. We talk about the sending funding and military weapons to Taiwan. In spite of saying, oh, we believe in the one China policy, literally acting like we don't, and testing our systems and surrounding them with military bases. How does that make you feel that Biden and the Biden administration is owned by the CCP? And when the CCP just had this interaction too with Trudeau and how they interact with Trudeau, and Trudeau takes his orders basically from the same type of mentality as the United States State Department. So how I have a really hard time understanding how you can think that Biden is owned by the CCP. The CCP literally is called the Communist Party of China. Do I think it's fully communist in what I think? No, I don't think that exists in the world right now. But like I do think like they have an economy where they have to have capitalist elements in it, and then their government structure though is communist in structure, like the way their government is structured. What Joe Biden's neoliberal capitalist model is diametrically opposed to that. It just doesn't make, it shows me a lack of understanding of the Chinese Communist Party. It shows me a lack of understanding of what the United States economy is. And it shows me just an attempt to just very lazily put this together when there is I didn't see any receipts showing that the CCP and Joe Biden and even Hunter were involved in anything more than investments. Again, there's a lot of wealth in China. There's a lot of things to invest in. That's why people invest
They're
in
going to
China.
say it was a Chinese state bank that issued the monies and whatnot, and that's the receipts that people have, and that's why they're going.
But why wouldn't people want to do business? I mean, China is a very does business with the United States. They do business with everybody. A lot of people are doing business with China right now. Russia, you have India, you have Pakistan, you have China. China's doing business with Nicaragua. China's doing business with African countries. China's doing business with everybody. So technically, at any given term, you could say X country is funded by the CCP.
Yeah.
Could you not?
Well,
So,
I like that, but here's my argument is the fact that it doesn't make a difference when it comes to these matters, what China does and what the relationship was. We need not worry about China. If we had a foreign policy that was responsible, we wouldn't have to worry about China. And no, I don't believe that China will fill in the gaps as we pull out that ridiculous theory by conservatives or America First people that say, well, if we don't do this and we're not the policemen of the world, China and Russia will be. No. Scott Horn explained this beautifully. Well, we don't see them moving around with all bases all around the world right now, do we? No.
Where are their bases? Yeah.
So why would they do that? And secondly, when it comes to our elections, when it comes to our foreign policy, we need not worry about them. We mind our own business. We behave right. We make our own resources. We start production and manufacturing back home. We get our election straight. We don't have to worry about any other entity coming out there and pulling strings. The conservatives, more than the leftist fib. They both, conservatives and shit libs and neocons both need their boogeyman no matter what. They can never look inward and look at themselves and say, why is this system not working properly? Look at myself, look in the mirror. But they got China, Russia, Putin, Xi, communism, capitalism. Look inside, assholes.
It relieves us of our
responsibility.
own responsibilities. Yes, our own accountability, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, exactly. Tell me you want that is taking down. Do you think China's just going to allow us to take down? What jurisdiction, Jack, do we have to getting involved in China's politics? And why is it that if every time anybody in China protests, we have to get involved? Same with Iran. It's the same exact thing. If you're against intervention, in one country, you should be against it everywhere. It's not. This isn't the reason we're in this situation right now in Ukraine is because of our interventionist policies. It's just so ridiculous. And again, we can't afford war with China. we can't even afford a war with Russia, a proxy war.
Well, fam, we got a lot of work to do. I think I might have screwed myself over with my new friend. So, but oh well, it sucks to be us sometimes. Tell us why you're in commie heaven, fam, without telling us you're in commie heaven.
So me and Dan Kobelik, who's on his way back to the United States, went to see Fidel, and it was Thanksgiving. That was my Thanksgiving. I got to see Fidel at Thanksgiving.
Aw.
And it was a statue that you guys saw that we talked about, Diaz-Canel coming here and opening up the ceremony with Putin. And there's a lot of things being said about Russia and Putin right now. There's a lot of people might not like this, but there's, I don't think Putin is going to bring back the Soviet Union like it was before, but I do think Putin he comes from that era. So he has some sort of respect to it, right? And the Communist Party is the second largest party in Russia, and there's people that like it, there's people that don't like it. Russia is primarily a capitalist country, but it still has the Soviet like structures in terms of its healthcare, transportation, things like that, education, things that are important that I would wish the United States would adopt, right? Brutal dictator Putin giving people education, giving people healthcare, a really good train system would be great in the United States. And
Fascism.
so
Fascism.
yeah. So again, also Fidel passed away at age 90.
I didn't know
6 years
Redfish was
ago.
Russia state affiliated media.
Yeah.
They are?
Not really. I mean, it's kind of hard to say. It's probably because they might get some funding. Like all it takes for you to be Russia state affiliated media is if any sort of Russian official fund gives you some sort of money, and they basically
Oh, if
consider
somebody gives
that
us a
Russia.
super chat and they're from Moscow, we can
Not a
be in
super
trouble?
chat, but like in an official, like in any official capacity. So that's essentially what it is. Even though it's a corporation itself, it's a separate entity. It doesn't matter. They
Holy
still
cow,
consider
fam.
that.
By the way, we have 27 thumbs up and 3 thumbs down on our Rockfin, and those premium members only. So people are pissed at us. Wow, 47
Oh
people
no,
hanging on out.
probably the Brazil thing
For what reason?
or the
What
China
reason?
thing. Or it could be. I mean, we never rag on. Well, we rarely rag on the right because we usually focus on the shit libs. But there's Fidel, fam, newspaper man. That's a newspaper man.
Fam, we look very much alike.
Fam, you do not
I
look
can
alike.
understand why he's a lady killer like me. I can understand.
Please, you do not look alike. But
Oh,
Che's
yeah.
my favorite anyway, not Castro. So anyway, so moving on, fam. I just wanted to show what I did with Dan, and we had a great time.
I'm glad you guys did. It
bunch
looked
of
like a fun
commies.
time. Bunch of commies hanging out for Thanksgiving. Fam, I want to talk a little bit really quickly about Fidel Castro because I think it's something's going undone. Because even like the anarchist, and you mentioned something about people bringing up that one town, Voldemort or whatever, the one where they starved people out in Russia and stuff. And
Voldemort, yeah.
yeah, Voldemort, whatever. But people like to mention this stuff
Voldemort.
again. They like to mention this stuff as if it kind of like, if you mention that you have some admiration for Fidel Castro, that you're a commie, you're authoritarianism, it's just a different form of oppression. But the fact is that Fidel Castro was loved and revered by so many people, some of the most vulnerable, poorest people throughout that region, because they looked at him as a revolutionist who was stepping up against the empire. That he helped a lot of people. He's loved and revered. He's just not looked upon as Cubans, you know what I'm saying? But a lot of people in that region love and respect Fidel Castro. Isn't there something to that? The fact that we should respect the fact that a lot of people respected Fidel Castro, and
Of course, a lot of people respect him because what happened. So I did a really good video on this. You guys should watch it. Pretty much talking about how the Batista government at one point ruled Cuba, and Cuba was known as the in Spanish it was like La Perla de los Estados Unidos, but like the kind of like the bitch of the United States, like because the US officials and everybody would just go and like had a prostitution, whorehouses, everything, clubs. And there was a lot of
US be
US.
taken down into Cuba to get some little females.
A lot of people were, yeah. So they
the
had
mob
like
was there.
a great time. They, criminal dealings, all this stuff. They had property there.
Casinos,
So
all the mob
Castro
owned all the
came in,
casinos. Yeah.
and he was like, all this money is literally going out of the country. The same thing that happens now with a lot of countries, right? Where we reap the resources don't go to the people of those countries, they go elsewhere. So he was like, no, fuck that. So it was a lot more complex than that on his story, but basically he came in, eventually assembled a small, very small guerrilla type of army, took out Batista, and nationalized a great portion of the industries that were in Cuba that belonged to the Americans, took those out, and basically did that. Now, obviously, what does that do? That's going to cause a problem. You can't, if you do it like that, it's just, there's no, you're like, boom, you're going from one system to another. And it took some time, right? So Cuba has been under a 60-year embargo, and that really is what's done a lot of hurt for the economy. This is why people there, can't have like a lot of the luxury new cars, for example, that we have because of the embargo. The United States stopped. They can't import cars. They can't import medical supplies.
Yeah.
They've had to develop their own medical system, their own type of vaccine, and that sort of thing. So that's one of the, when people talk about Cuba and they don't mention U.S. blockade, U.S. sanctions, U.S. embargo, and everything that did to the population, just like it's done with Venezuela, why would I listen to you? Like, you don't have to like it. You can say, well, I think we could have a better system. Sure, but you don't own Cuba. You're not Cuban. So that's not up to you.
I think
let them handle their shit.
exactly. Let them do what they want to do, even if they're wrong. In your opinion, that's their right to do it and stuff. And everybody who talks about Fidel Castro or Xi Jinping, and if you have any accolades for them, or you like them, or give them any credit for what they're doing, show them any support, and think that some of the collectivism, which there's collectivism, can be used in a bad way, can be used in a good way. We use the term collectivism because we see a people that were oppressed with the American empire boot on their neck and wanting to get it off, and wanting to decide their own ways. And that's what Fidel Castro stood for them. That's what Xi Jinping stands for in a lot of ways. But anytime that you say anything decent about these people, oh, you're communist, authoritarianism, like that's the part of communism and authoritarianism they hate. They can't understand the workers' movement. That majority of people get on these movements because it's a workers' movement. They want more rights. They want a better standard of living. And they see all these corporations coming in, rape their resources, paying their workers nothing, and then their countrymen starving, literally starving in the streets. So that's what it means. And that's something we have to understand. And a lot of these conditions wouldn't be there, these push for communism or Marxism or anything that's there, if the empire wasn't in there trying to push their ways. It might have been a little bit different. But once again, it all started from American empire intervention. And that's where it starts. And that's where you have to go to the actual wound itself, the actual cut itself, fam. The actual damage itself. That's where it starts, not the surface level bullshit. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, and the reason, and this is, and the authoritarianism thing goes back to understanding Marxism. And this is why there's a difference between Marxists and anarchists, because anarchists reject all authority of any kind at all times. And Marxists, they see authority as being a rebellion in a way where you have to have authority. Like in those terms, it's called authoritarianism of the proletariat. So they see as you having to have a revolution, getting rid of these elites and imposing the will of the people. It's essentially literally getting rid of the rich and imposing the will of the people so people could have access to everything. But the way it's worded, I think people misunderstand it as to what it is. And I do think there's a difference between a country fighting, like Cuba fighting the United States, and a country like Russia fighting the United States, and them stopping propaganda that while they're being censored. So you can't, so RT, for example, and somebody asked me this question in an interview, like, do you think Russia has free speech? I'm like, yeah, to a degree, but to a degree, they're also stopping American propaganda, right? Because the United States stopped RT from being spread. They stopped all sorts of Russian media from being spread. So in turn, Russia came back and said, oh, we're going to stop Facebook. You're not going to have access to this and that. But most people have access to it via a VPN. But in terms of like protesting, People were protesting here. It was just much smaller. In terms of saying things against Putin, people can say things against Putin, but they're not going to allow people to go and try to do a protest against to overturn the government like Alex Navalny. So there's a difference between that. And so during wartime, of course, they're more careful of the stuff they allow in here because they know that there's a target on the youth of Moscow, like the youth of Russia, particularly in Moscow. This is what's happening is like the young people don't understand. They don't know they don't know. They see the West in a more benevolent way than they should. And it's even young people that I talk to that, they're like, yeah, but the West is blah, blah, blah. It's not, they don't understand. And that's the problem when you have young people who are really easily propagandized via social media, then you as a leader, like, you have to make that choice. Are you going to allow them to freely have this propaganda? And they still do. I mean, people in Russia still have that access, but there are other people that would say, you know what, like it is more controlled in China, right? Where it's like, no, we don't want these people having access to US propaganda because it's going to brainwash them. And what has been the most fundamental tool for brainwashing us in the United States and in Europe and the EU? The media and movies, Hollywood. So I can understand from that perspective of these countries taking the defensive position, countries like China saying, hey, we don't know, like we're banned, we're vilified, so we're gonna restrict certain things that you can see from the United States. Not saying that I ideologically agree with it. I understand it because I don't live there. I'm not a country that's constantly vilified. I'm not from a country that's constantly vilified by the United States. But being in Russia here and seeing how they're constantly vilified, lies are constantly made up, I could understand how Putin would say, you know what, we're going to limit some of the propaganda that comes here from the United States. But really, it's minimal, the limit they have here. I mean, you can go watch American movies pretty much anywhere here. You can go and look at all this stuff. Like, so I don't even think they're doing anything like that. I think Cuba is actually more strict than Russia, and they're a little island nation that has
very
resisted.
close little island, close to the United States and motherland's right there. They get sniped at any time. But earlier in the show, fam, I think we mentioned too as well, something that we want to kind of point out when it comes to the lockdowns or anything else that people are praising against and whatnot, is that MI6, the Nazis, when it came to Operation Paperclip, we took all this information, all these biological diseases, all these biological weapons. We took this and we've used this. And there's been certain and it's kind of crazy because they've been on Alex Jones's show before. So I forgot his name, but a certain guy who worked in the weapons department said we've been trying to develop biological weapons that can go and attack certain DNA, certain genes and whatnot.
Yeah.
So if China is in somehow belief that, and seeing what went on in the Ukraine with all those labs, and if there are some in Taiwan, of course they're going to be freaked out thinking it's a biological weapon made specifically for them. They're going to freak out. Does that justify what they're doing? No. But as Americans, shouldn't that be the only thing we should be responsible is for our actions first? It's kind of like we do something and then we blame China for the reaction. I just don't get that, fam. It's just
We led that. I mean, us and Canada have done some of the worst, most restrictive and also
fam. We lost fam. We lost her. She just left us. So guys, she'll be here in 2 seconds, but I'm just going to add this really quick. You know what? Let me take a really quick look at it to make sure see anybody's hanging on out. Guys, we have 50 people still watching on the Rumble. We want you to hang out even more and watch more on that Rumble. Thank you, Blank State, for the whatchamacallit, the Rumble rant. 37 people still hanging on out over on the premium Rockfin. If you can afford to go over and spend a few bucks on the Rockfin, please do so. That is where we can eventually then do our Rockfin and premium, make a few bucks so we can keep the lights, the electricity, and the and everything else on. So check this out. So this is Imran Khan giving his best Willis Reed impression. So I wanted to tell this in front of fam because I wanted her to understand the story about who Willis Reed is. I'm going to play this because it's not necessary for the volume, but you can see there. If you don't know, if you don't remember, Imran Khan was shot not too long ago. I believe it was November the 4th, not too long ago. So they didn't know when he was going to be back, and they've been doing this months long, since April, since he was removed from office, when he accused the American empire of having him removed through back channels and their relationships with the government. He tried to dissolve the parliament so they can go to snap elections, meaning that everything is dissolved and it goes to the people. So he's been hurt and out since they tried to have him killed. And you can see him right here. This is him coming back, and you can see him limping and moving around. Fam. So fam.
He's back.
In 1969, 1970, 1969 season, 1970, the New York Knicks were taking on the dominant Los Angeles Lakers, who had Will Chamberlain, had all these other people, Jerry West. The Knicks were a great team. They were a great team, and they had a chance to beat the Lakers. But in Game 7, their center, Willis Reed, was injured. He had his Achilles tendon, fam, torn. And if you tear your Achilles, you can't even move. So a lot of people were talking before the game, will Willis Reed play? If Willis Reed plays, we have a chance to win. Without Willis Reed, we don't have a chance. So right before the game, and they were talking, they heard, listen, Willis Reed is he's gonna jack himself up with cortisone. The guy can't even barely move. And all of a sudden, he comes walking onto the court, fam, comes walking out of the locker room. The place in New York, Madison Square Garden, goes wild. Here's a guy, he can barely walk. He's injured as can be. He's walking onto the court, fam, and he made 2 baskets, right? 4 points. But the energy of what he brought there, of an injured man, their fallen soldier coming out there to play, just uplifted everybody. And the Knicks went on to win their first title in 1907 because Willis Reed made it to the floor. Look at Imran Khan. He's walking and he can barely walk. He's been shot. He's pulling his greatest Willis Reed impression, fam. This is him. The place went nuts, they said, when he came out and addressed the crowd. I'm going to show pictures of the crowd. Fam, do you remember the first Karate Kid?
Vaguely.
What happened was Johnny hurt fucking Daniel LaRusso, and Daniel LaRusso was not going to be able to fight, right? Not Johnny, the guy fighting before he was supposed to fight Johnny, that, you know what I'm saying, who's in the show with him now. So he wasn't going to fight, and they were about to give the trophy to Johnny, and they're like, somebody comes running up, and it's Elizabeth Shue, and she whispers in the ear, and it's like, Daniel LaRusso's going to fight? Like, he questions it. Daniel LaRusso's going to fight. And here comes Ralph Macchio, fam. He can barely walk. He's limping out there, the Karate Kid. Well, that's what Imran Khan did yesterday. Look at him. He's limping. I mean, just amazing. He's back, ladies and gentlemen. Imran Khan is on the scene. And I want to show the crowd real quick. Let's just show you the sides of the. You want to talk, fam? All these people out there talking about Brazil. What about what's going on in Pakistan? If you care for national sovereignty, if you care about true democracy, why aren't you reporting about what's going on over here in Pakistan? Here, let me show. Fam, look at this. Pakistan. Let me show you the size of the crowd. Massive protests are taking place in Rawalpindi, Pakistan. Protesters are rallying in support of Imran Khan.
Can you scroll?
Yeah, Khan's back. Let the march gather steam. Take a look and look at the size of this, fam.
Wow.
I'd have a little music back there. Pretty awesome, huh, fam?
That's pretty awesome. Yeah,
Pretty
he has
awesome.
a lot of support. I mean, he's got a lot of support. What can I say? And there's a reason why they tried to kill him. They've tried, I think on more than one occasion, but this is they got close to shooting him. And that election is going to be, I mean, they removed him. In my opinion, he was, removed with help from foreign powers, to say the least. So,
well, let's take a look at this one article, because, fam, the whole idea was to march to Islamabad, right? Now he's called it off since then, because they have another plan, and he's not quitting. They're just kind of changing up what's going on. This is the new plan right now. We're going to talk about it, because what he tried to do was dissolve the Congress and call for snap elections. Before they did that, before he could dissolve the Congress, their Congress put in a vote of no confidence and removed him. And he accused the West of planting this backdoor removal. Remember, he'd seen Putin the day of the invasion. He since said, I didn't know he was invading then, but he had to go to his anyways. He went to ask for resources his people desperately need. He wanted to create some better relationships with Russia. And he understood that, but yet he was crucified for it. And that's when American government had enough of him and they decided to have him removed. So he says, but anyways, let's take a look at this because there was a plan. He tried to, like I said, dissolve the Congress. Therefore, that would mean they would have what's called snap elections, which means immediate elections, and it goes to the people, and the people then would elect their new Congress and elect their new prime minister. So let's take a look. Ex-Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan calls off March to avoid chaos. Imran Khan has also announced his party will resign from provincial. Can you help me out?
Provincial, yeah.
Thank you. Assemblies in first rally since his assassination attempt. So what he's trying to do, fam, is he's trying to have all these other small provinces resign to force the government to go into snap elections. So here's what he says. Pakistani former Prime Minister Imran Khan has called up a long march to the capital of Islamabad, fearing chaos, and announced his party would resign from state assemblies in a new bid to push for early elections. I have decided not to go to Islamabad because I know there will be havoc and the loss will be to the country, Khan said in his first public address in the garrison city of Rawalpindi near the capital since the assassination attempt earlier this month. Al Jazeera's Kamal Haider, reporting from Islamabad, said Khan made a passionate plea to his supporters saying chaos would not be in the interest of Pakistan, given that the country is facing an economic crisis. The South Asian nation has been facing dire economic situation with galloping inflation and nosediving rupee, their currency. It also had to secure an international monetary fund with the IMF, a loan in August to avert default. The cricketer turned politician, and his Pakistani Tehreek-e-Insaf, the PTI party, have been holding countrywide protests to push the government for early elections since he was removed as prime minister in his vote of no confidence in April. He has claimed he was removed as part of a U.S.-led conspiracy, though earlier this month he said the U.S. was not behind his ouster in a major U-turn. Fam, if you go and read the article and you see what's going on, that's a lie. He never said that they weren't involved. He just says he's not going to deal with it anymore. He's not going to go back. He's looking forward. So he's trying to force the hand moving forward, saying regardless if the United States was involved, we need to have good relationships with the United States, and they're pushing forward. So that was kind of a bullshit, misleading paragraph there because he did not say they're not involved. The protests were to culminate in March in a march to Islamabad, which threatened to worsen the political turmoil in the nuclear-armed country, which is battling an economic crisis. A rally in Islamabad by his supporters in May had turned violent. So this is what they're doing. The PTI is to quit the assemblies. One of the biggest announcements was the plans to quit the two provincial assemblies and 2 administrative units. We will not be part of the system. We have decided to quit all assemblies and get out of this corrupt system, Khan said while addressing thousands of his supporters. PTI has already resigned from the federal parliament, but remains in power in 2 provinces and 2 administrative units. And these are the 2 areas, the Gilgit, Baltistan, and Pakistan-administered Kashmir. The Al Jazeera correspondent said that Khan's decision to resign from the state assembly of Punjab, Khyber, I can't even say that last word, was aimed at pressuring the government to call snap elections, fam. So that's what they're trying to do. They're removing themselves from the state provinces, stepping down, trying to force the government to have snap elections now. Now, at the end of the year, Pakistan has to have elections in 2023 no matter what. But Imran Khan has been trying to force them early. So instead of marching to Islamabad, they're standing the ground where they're at right now. They're resigning and removing themselves from these state provinces and trying to force the government into snap elections, fam. That is the new plan. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know how the system works. I am paying attention to a lot of the discrepancies and the complaints they have in the election systems. Imran Khan and the PTI are trying to push to make sure these biometric machines are there. They feel that the government of Pakistan, the leaders that it be, can create more votes if they don't have this, if they don't have the biometric systems in place. So they are trying to get all their securities in there and try to win an election. I don't know about.
Are you trying to go to Pakistan?
Fam, I don't think we're ready for that. And then India has elections this year too as well. I think we'll be a little bit more safer in India at this point right now, a little bit more stable government right now.
That's why I would want to go to Pakistan.
Fam, stop it.
Fam.
We can't go to
What do
Pakistan.
you say, guys? Pakistan? I know Argentina's on the
We got
books.
Cuba and Argentina for sure. We'll see where else everybody leads us out. Let's just take it easy. You know, right now, like this talk about the Dom bosses, you know, is all the good
Yes. Yes.
So, guys, we have a super race today, fam. We had a long ass show.
I know. We
Great
didn't
show.
have one Friday, so that's
So this
why.
was a 3-hour show. This was a great show. I had a fun time, fam. Anything else you got to tell us what's going on? Anything going on at the AT Studios that we should be knowing about?
No, I'll be on the news desk starting on Sunday night or Sunday for you guys.
So the whole rest of the week?
Saturday night?
So
yeah, Saturday night.
What are you going to be doing for the next 5 days?
Corresponding.
So they can still catch you on RT Rumble, guys. Corresponding. We're going to be relying on some guests. Like I said, a week from tomorrow, we do have the Dave Smith, Jimmy Dore 24, part 2 of the panel, and we're going to have some more discussion. Probably talk a little bit more about healthcare, talk about foreign policy, talk about this compromise, if it could happen, if it could be done, and what it's going to need to be taken to be done, and what the plans are from their perspective. Clint and Dave can tell us what the Libertarian Party has in store. Now, they're not the leaders. They're not elected for anything. They are kind of known Mises Caucus people that are kind of out there pushing some stuff. Dave is, trying to do his thing. Clint is doing his stuff in the freedom movement. So we'll see what they got to say, fam. But we're going to hit them with some questions and have a good time. And that's on Tuesday. And I'm trying to arrange all these other panels and other guests we got going on. So I'm going to reach out to a bunch of people. We want to get Whitney Webb back on the show soon. We want to talk to her. I got my friends Mel Kay and Angela McCardle. We've been talking about them, trying to line something up. Cynthia McKinney's got a weird schedule, but we're trying to arrange some stuff with her. So we're going to try to get together as many people as we can. So, fam, we have a very busy couple weeks in store. So, yes.
Great, fam.
All right, guys, that's it for today. Remember, all the ways you want to help out, you can help out, support the show. Be a Rockfin Premium Combo Couch member. We were over there today. We only had about 45, 50 people. We want to get that number up. So if you can go over there, $9.99 a month, that really does help us out. We're all on Rumble, so we'll never put it behind a paywall. You can always hang out at Rumble. And we have some people on YouTube hanging out today as well. So that's it for today. We'll see you back tomorrow, fam. I'm having a special election show. Addy Ads is going to come on and talk. We have some people lined up. I got a lot of things to go over in the docket and the folder. We're going to talk a lot about American elections. We're going to talk a lot about Arizona. We're going to talk about.
So that's on Rumble and
Rockfin only. It will not be on YouTube, guys. So that's something to keep in mind. So that's it for today. For Pasta Jardula,
Fiorella,
and me on the 1s and 2s, fam.
And from Fidel too, the newspaper man. Combo out.
Newspaper guy. Combo out. Goodbye.